Hello, 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 hello. How's it going? I'm about to have my other thing come on and then make music, and then everyone will comment on how there's an error here. How I always screw up the opening here, but welcome, welcome. Um, we are here in Santo Domingo. My name's Preston Jacobs. We're talking about, you know, A Song of Ice and Fire. Anything else we want to talk about? Um, yeah. Now, the topic tonight that I wanted to talk about, and maybe some people might think this is obvious, or that, but I wanted to really present the story of A Song of Ice and Fire a little differently, because a lot of times people think about POVs and they think about the growing problem of the story is the growing POVs, um, because they think that naturally each POV would bring its own story with it. And I do think there's a correlation of POVs to story. But I wanted to focus a little bit on the fact that even though the first three books had a lot of POVs, you'd be surprised that when measured another way, when measured as location, or when measured by as plotline story, it's he doesn't like George doesn't actually get that carried away until A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons. And so I want to show something kind of messy that I was just kind of like playing around with. Let me show you some random little thing I was looking at here. Okay. So I wanted to talk about let me this is all let me close some windows, get me some memory. Things are going slowly here. Anyway, so I wanted to show a different way to view the story. So let's start with, and I hope this is, maybe I'll grow this a little bit so that you can see what I've been kind of just playing around with here. And there might be some mess ups here. So, so let's talk about A Game of Thrones. Now, A Game of Thrones, famously, people think of it having 8 point of views, or 9 if you include the prologue. But what's interesting about that is that there's another way to actually view how complicated A Game of Thrones is. Because yes, one could argue 8 point of views, 9 point of views, if we include Garrett. However, it's not really that many different storylines or locations. You can break down A Game of Thrones as essentially that there are 5 stories that go on in A Game of Thrones. There is, obviously, we start out with Garrett, and we have the story of the others. And later on, that is Jon's story. So 2 points of views are dealing with the others and the wall story. And then the second story we have is Winterfell. Obviously, all of the characters begin at Winterfell at the beginning of the story, besides Garrett. But we have the story of Bran's spiritual journey. Then everyone kind of leaves, and there's this journey, but they're all journeying together. And Kat stays behind at Winterfell, so we haven't really grown the plot too much. But we have this journey, and then they get to King's Landing. But keep in mind, for the entirety of A Game of Thrones, Ned, Arya, and Sansa are in the same location. So the journey to King's Landing, and the King's Landing, what I call here the scheming politics plot of A Game of Thrones, is there. And then we've got what I call the Arrest Green Fork plotline, which is the Catelyn Tyrion plotline of A Game of Thrones, where all of a sudden, Tyrion is at Winterfell, he's at the Wall, but those aren't really his stories. right? He starts really becoming a character and affecting things once he's in the Catelyn story. And the Catelyn story of her arresting Tyrion, the war beginning, and then Tyrion going and heading to the Green Fork. But Catelyn is, of course, on the other side. Now, yes, technically Robb isn't at the Green Fork, but we're all led to believe that he's at the Green Fork. He's doing the Whispering Wood at the same time. Anyway, the point is, it's the war on the ground is the plot. There is a war that begins in that story. And then obviously across the narrow sea, we've got Dany's story with the dragons. So even though Catelyn and Tyrion are in sometimes very different locations, it's still the same story, right? We're still talking about the war on the ground between the Starks and the Lannisters. So we have these 5 stories. And so 9 points of view, but 5 stories, manageable. I mean, it grows, but there's 5. And so then we get into a Clash of Kings. Now, Clash of Kings has 10 points of view. We get rid of Ned, but we add Davos and Theon. But it's really only 8. We have our continuing stories, the continuing others story of Jon, Wall North of the Wall. We've got Winterfell, Bran's spiritual journey. We've got King's Landing, which is now taken over by Tyrion, going with Sansa. So Tyrion and Sansa. Then we have the journey, Catelyn. She's dealing with the war on the ground with Robb's war. And then we have Karth with Dany's story. So we have our original 5 plot lines continuing on. Then we get a new plot line. I would call it the Arya trauma plot line. Arya is now wandering this Riverlands. She is now in her own story that will continue on. So we have now introduced a 6th story. Then we get the Dragonstone story. Crescent is a point of view in that. Davos is a point of view in that. But we have Stannis' war as a plot line. And that's very different from Catelyn's war on the ground. This is, they're doing very different things. We're talking about shadow babies and Renly and Edric Storm and things like that. Now, and then briefly, I would argue that there is an 8th plot line. There is Theon's early Theon story, where he visits the Iron Islands. But that story does collapse. It gets folded into the Bran story, and Theon is eliminated as a point of view. So one could argue, yes, the Clash of Kings story, like we had 5 stories, we've grown it to 8 stories. But by the end of the book, we really have 7 stories to deal with. It's bigger, but, it's not huge. So now we go into a Storm of Swords. Now, Storm of Swords has 12 points of view. We now add Sam, an epilogue with Merritt. We add Jaime. We get rid of Theon. So we drop Theon, but we add Jaime and Sam. So here we've got our original plot lines. We've got Jon with the others. We've got Bran's spiritual journey. He's now not in Winterfell, but it's still Bran's spiritual journey. It's still a Winterfell plot, really, if we're talking, We've got the King's Landing scheming politics, which is Tyrion and Sansa's story. We've got the Riverlands, the war on the ground, Catelyn. We've got Slaver's Bay. We've got our Dany story. So original 5 are there. We've got the Arya trauma story, which is our 6th story that was added. We have the Dragonstone Stannis' war story, but that one gets collapsed. It gets collapsed and folded into Jon's story by the end of the book. We also get Sam. We have a second Sam story that is the prologue is definitely Sam's story. It's the Chet is Sam's story. So I'd call it Others too. But by the end of A Storm of Swords, that story also collapses into Jon's. And then we have, I would say, the birth of what I would say the Jaime Brienne Oathkeeper story. So one could argue that, again, like we started with 7, we're growing it to 9, but we're collapsing it back to 7. And so A Storm of Swords is still kind of in a manageable situation. A Storm of Swords doesn't actually grow the story. We've added points of view, but we're still dealing with the same 7 plot lines. You know, we grew it to 9, but now we've collapsed it down to 7 manageable plot lines. A Feast for Crows, A Dance with Dragons. I think it's 22 plot point of views, unless I've miscounted. It's definitely this is not really 9 locations. No, it's a lot of locations here. So this is the real problem here. It's not just that we've added points of view. You can add a whole bunch of points of view, and it doesn't really matter if you're only telling one story. For instance, the Ironborn have 3 different points of view, but it's really still one story. Dorne has 1 point of view, has 3 points of view, but it's still one story. So it wouldn't necessarily say like having Areo-Hotah and Arion and Aerys Oakheart is a problem, because it's still just one story. The same with the Ironborn. So we definitely still have our original 5 stories. We've got the others. We've got Bran's spiritual journey. We have this king. We've got the others with Jon. Bran's spiritual journey with Bran. King's Landing is now taken over by Cersei. The Riverlands War on the Ground story from Catelyn is now taken over by Jaime. We're still dealing with the Riverlands and the War on the Ground. War of the Five Kings isn't really over, right? So Jaime takes over that story, even though he's half of his story is in King's Landing in the beginning. We got Meereen, we got the dragons, right? And in that we have like Barristan and Dany, and so we still have that story. We've got Braavos' Arya. Arya's gone to Braavos, but it's still the Arya trauma story. Then we've got Brienne's story, the Oathkeeper story. And that story does collapse at the end. Jaime and Brienne do meet each other again at the end. So perhaps there's a collapse there. So that's good. That's good news. However, we have all of these new ones. We have the Old Town story, which is our prologue. And then, of course, Sam, his journey is essentially on to Old Town. So we have this new Old Town story that's birthing. So we had, you could even say like the 7 stories before were collapsing down into 6, you could say. But unfortunately, we have the Old Town story. Sam's story had collapsed. It had collapsed into Jon. We didn't need to have a Sam point of view opening things up again, but Sam is used to open up a new tale in Old Town. Then we have the Dorne story. Aerys Oakheart, Areo-Hotah, Arion. That's introduced. Now we have a new Vale story. Sansa is no longer in King's Landing. We're starting a Vale story. Tyrion's no longer in King's Landing. He has an exile story. Now then we've got the Ironborn story is brought back. It's brought back. We thought it was collapsed. It's uncollapsed. It's back. Then we have the Winterfell story with Theon and Asha. You could this is again the Stannis' war story, which we thought we collapsed into Jon's story. No, it's back. It's uncollapsed. It's back. And then we have like people heading to Slaver's Bay, Victarion and Quentyn. Maybe you could argue that that's all part of the dragon story, but still, that might be another story. You could argue that collapses at story's end, or that you could argue that Tyrion collapses at story's end. But we definitely have this new Aegon story, and we definitely have this new Dothraki Sea story, where Dany goes off and she's going to have a completely separate story away from the whole dragons and Meereen and everything. And Aegon, he is definitely something new. He like that's we haven't dealt with anything like that in the Riverlands and stuff. So where we had 7 stories, we're now dealing with upwards 14, 15, 16 different plot lines now all of a sudden. So in a best case scenario, when we're talking about how many plot lines we have, we could argue that maybe in a best case scenario, and this is we're not having the best case scenario, but best case scenario, you have still the 5 continuing on stories. You've got the others, Bran's spiritual journey, scheming politics, North of the Wall, King's Landing, Bran's journey, Riverlands with Jaime and Brienne. We're collapsing the Oathkeeper storyline into the War on the Ground. This is best case scenario. We're collapsing Riverlands into one thing. Best case scenario, we collapse all of our Marine characters into one. Quentin, Tyrion, Vic, Barristan. All that just gets collapsed into one storyline for Marine. We still have our Arya trauma story. We still have an Old Town story. Best case scenario, Euron is folded into that. We still have a minor Dorne story because we've got Areo Hota that still needs to go off and meet Darkstar. We still have the Vale story. We still have Stannis' war story with Theon and Asha. We still have the Aegon story, and we still have the Dothraki sea story. So in the best case scenario of all of the storylines folding in, we're still dealing with a dozen storylines. And so it's less to do with the number of points of view, because you can tell the Jaime Brienne story alternating Jaime or Brienne and doing 2 Jaime chapters and 2 Brienne chapters. And it doesn't matter as long as those 2 characters are together. It doesn't matter that we have that many points of view. It doesn't matter that we have both Jon Con and Arianne, because they're in the same location. It doesn't, if you resurrected Jon or Mel, like, it doesn't really matter. They're in the same location. It's the fact that there's storylines that are and locations are still really wide that we can't collapse. You could argue that maybe by story's end you could get the Stannis war back into the others and bring the Bran down. Get Dany back to Marine. But it's still so many locations. I don't know how you collapse in Vale. You get the Vale in there with Jaime and Brienne, and you try to collapse in Old Town with Areo Hota with Old Town, and it's just, you're dealing with a lot of plot lines, and that's the major problem, not necessarily the points of view. So anyway, that's just the small thing I was kind of going with. Yeah, I guess the Aegon story could become the King's Landing story, but then what do you do with Cersei, right? Is Cersei still hanging out there? She's going to go somewhere else and have her own new story somewhere else. So but it is about trying to collapse these things. It's a little frustrating, actually, looking through it and being like, you had collapsed a story and you didn't need to bring it back. Like, George didn't need to bring the Ironborn story back. I mean, I love the Ironborn story, actually, but he didn't need to bring it back, So it's, there's some, yeah, I do wonder how much Jaime's A Feast for Crows story was needed, things like that, if we already had Brienne. But anyway, that's just the way of looking at it, that the problem might not be points of view, because points of view might not actually represent storylines, but the storylines, I think there's still a correlation. The storylines are still out of control. You're telling more than a dozen stories in the Winds of Winter. And how many chapters do you have to tell a dozen stories? When you had 5 stories to tell in a Game of Thrones and you had 72 chapters, that's a lot of time. That's a dozen chapters per storyline if you want, But in the reverse, when you have over a dozen storylines, now you only have 3, 5, 6 chapters to tell them. All right. Let's get into some things. The fanfic should be 80 chapters instead of 70, as Asos was 70 chapters. Yeah, I know. It's just time. How many years do we want to be doing this before moving on? I think it can be done. The fanfic, I think, can be done in under 70 chapters. I think looking at it, I think I can pull off like 68 to 69 chapters, and that's just a lot better. Can you put Trey's Minoan outfit in the fanfic? Does Trey's? I mean, maybe I'll describe it. Trey, of course, loves to cosplay a little, and he's got some pretty awesome costumes that he owns that he sometimes shows off. Um, I forget which one was his Minoan Minoan out. Is that the one I saw recently? You know, um, it's funny putting Minoan, and they're like, "Did you mean minion?" No, no, I didn't. I don't want minion costumes. Well, I mean, I can try to have some sort of uh, description of something, some warrior that would look like that. I think that's certainly possible. It might fit well, especially somewhere in, I don't know, Slaver's Bay, or you know in the story, Quentin is going to be passing by Mantaris, and we have nothing really written about what Mantaris is like. So we can have their clothing and armor look like anything we want. Um, um, if too many points of views was a problem, he would have added more books to the series to flesh out and finish the arcs. Mel's chapters equal incredible. New chapter call soon. Um, yeah, well, thank you about the Mel chapter. The Mel chapter was a lot of work. I'll go through a going through this week. Um, it's one of the situations. I'm very hard on myself, and it's like the Mel chapter doesn't have the same sort of like emotional punch as a lot of the chapters do, because it's dealing with a lot of plot, like go go go. How many balls are we juggling here, and we've got to get them aligned and move everything forward. I still think it came out great. It came out a lot funnier than I thought it would be. Like there's just a lot of jokes in it, which is strange considering it's the Wall story, and it's also a story after like hundreds of people have died, and yet there's still just a lot of jokes, I'm glad it came out kind of funny, but it was a lot of work. It might have been, every time I do a chapter, I'm like, that was the hardest one yet. I think Mel was definitely the hardest one yet. Um, but yeah, the new chapter call soon. I'm gonna try to get. I'm still struggling on putting together Sam. It's about half put together. If you're, up to the point of where the Dark Star and Hota come in, and then I got to come back, But like, so that's taken me a bit longer because I've been pretty busy, and I wanted to put out the Mel chapter and record it and things like that. But I'm going to work on that. Once that is off, then maybe I can do another chapter call. But yeah, I haven't even looked at like the stuff for the Hota chapter too. So I'm a little behind. But I'll new chapter call will come. It'll probably be Danny. We gotta move on with Danny, and so that's going to be something that's going to come soon. But maybe I should do something, because a lot of the ideas in the Hota chapter might affect the Danny chapter. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, sometime soon. I'm probably within a month. There'll be another chapter call, and it'll probably be for Daenerys and Karth. I've been putting off Daenerys and Karth for a long time, but I think that's probably the next one to go. Will there be a Weeper battle chapter in the fanfic? That is a big mystery. I have an idea, and I don't want to spoil anything of how things are going to go. I mean, the Weeper is, we're going to have Mel at Castle Black, and we're going to have Davos at Eastwatch, and the Weeper is marching down the wall. And so there is going to be a lot of, at least mention of battle. And, as the Weeper approaches, and it's, how it all ends and things like that. Yeah, I mean, I think there will be a battle. There will be a wall battle eventually shown. I'm pretty confident in that. So, but yeah, that's the excitement. It's going to be this feel. We're going to try to attempt a feeling of that the Weeper is coming and the battle is, and he keeps taking forts along the wall and they're getting pushed back, and that the last stand will be Eastwatch, as people retreat and retreat and retreat and retreat, and the Weeper keeps going, and so that's kind of the wall story that's going to be going. So hopefully we'll have some battle in there at some point. But man, we just did so many battle chapters that I'm just like, oh God, can we not have battle chapters? Oh my God, writing battle chapters, it's just been rough. It's been rough. There's been so many of them. But yeah, we're gonna try. But there will be a wall battle at near story's end. So I'm sorry, but it might be years away. Yeah, but, it's 8 point books, and yes, I agree that yes. Dragon Demands mentions there's 8 point views in book 1, 12 by book 3. It only really expands in Feast Stance. I did a video on when Condell mentioned House of the Dragons, official list of 19 point of views, but the visual medium in Inherit has more. Dragon Demands actually did by the way, I'll give you a shout out, Dragon Demands. He did a excellent video on why it was really stupid that Amazon Prime canceled Wheel of Time. That actually Wheel of Time, numbers wise, cost versus viewership, was doing pretty well, in the same range as House of the Dragon, and that it was just kind of stupid. Yeah. He's really. I want a point of view in the Winds called The Waiting Man. I mean, my joke is that the Winds of Winter would come out and it's like it's just 20 new points of view and nothing, from different places. Somebody in Nath, somebody in the Summer Isles, Willis Tyrell. It's just like it's nothing but new points of view and new stories, and you're like, what? How is this possible? Yeah, the Vale story was started as Storm of Swords. That's a fair point. Hello from BC. Have you ever been to Vancouver? No. My travels in Canada include I've been to going east to west. I've been to Montreal, which what a city. That is a cool city. Had a great time there. I've been to Windsor. I've been to Calgary. I did a bunch of camping around Banff and Jasper. I've been to like camping in the Quetico. But other than that, no, that's it. That's all I've been to. I've never even been to Toronto or Ottawa or yeah, I've not been to Vancouver. So, unfortunately, people say it's a great city. It's a fun city, but I've not. I've only been to Seattle once, like my travel, being spending half my childhood in the Midwest and then my adult life on the East Coast, like most of my American experiences is Midwest and East Coast, but not that I haven't been to, I've done trips to California and Texas and I have to do my United States map. It reminds me though, because I once sat down. I was having years ago. I was having a conversation with my parents, and I was just sitting there. We're sitting having pizza, and I was like, "Have you guys been to all 50 states?" And my parents are like, "Huh." And my mom's like, I've never been to Maine, and my dad's like, I think I've been to all but Mississippi and Alabama. And then my mom incredulously looks at him and is like, when have you been to Utah? And he's like, I went to Utah before I met you, you know? And she's like, but the fact that like she knew, she's just like, when have you been to Utah? You know, it's one of those things. But yeah. Yeah. So randomly Montreal and Calgary are the cities I've been to, but what did the Dorn story should have been one chapter. I don't know about that. Last week you mentioned that in the fanfic, everyone will end up at Harrenhal, gardening seedlings from your season 7 and 8 fixed series. I'm trying to think. In that, didn't I have everybody end up at King? Did I have everybody end up at King's Landing in the end? Like I did have the others come down and attack King's Landing in those. But if I were, my idea with Harrenhal though is that eventually I want to bring in the Isle of Faces and the Green Men and things like that. And so I have an idea on how to pull all characters to Harrenhal. Like there is a reason why I have like in the fanfic the Bonifer Hasty is like more significant than one would think, and there's more discussion, so you're talking like a Vale invasion leading Sansa to her. If she is legitimized, she becomes the heir to Harrenhal, and there's this whole should we conquer back Littlefinger's home, which would become Elaine Baelish's home, that driving that plot line to Harrenhal. But then this idea of like there will be another Kingsmoot, and the idea will rather than having it on Old Wick, if the Kingsmoot location is changed to Harrenhal, the seat of Harren the Black, then you could pull a lot of characters in a lot of directions towards Harrenhal. And then we just need a few more reasons on why like everybody needs to go to Harrenhal, to pull all the stories there. But the idea is like the characters are too spread out, and we need to like shrink and contract the story, shrink and contract the locations and the plot lines. And I think Harrenhal is the place to do it. Getting to the Isle of Faces and things like that, and the final secrets of the story and things like that. So, but yeah, we're getting into a lot of spoilers on what I'm going to do in the fanfic, but there's some very important things that Euron is going to do, and with regards to shaping what all of the characters are going to do, like Euron declaring a new Kingsmoot is going to be a very important plot point. Do you think if the show was never made, Game of Thrones would be nearly the cultural juggernaut it is today? Would wins be anticipated? I wonder if George ever regrets the additional exposure pressure. No, I don't think he regrets it. No. I mean, obviously, if Game of Thrones was never made, A Song of Ice and Fire would be finished. Like, it would be done. That's it. Of course it would be finished. Like, that would be... The books would be his bread and butter, and it would be his only distraction. Like, he wouldn't have all of these other shows. He wouldn't have been pulled back to Hollywood and things like that. He would have only had the book. I mean, keep in mind, remember, like, with regards to Doorways, like, Game of Thrones was being written, and he dropped a Game of Thrones to go do the Doorways pilot and to write Doorways scripts for nearly 2 years. So of course he gets distracted. I mean, Game of Thrones itself was a distraction away from a book he was writing called Avalon, which Trey and I have been joking around about like things we can actually ask George that would produce a useful answer. And the one thing we've now come up with is like, what was Avalon going to be about? Like he's never told anyone what the plot of Avalon was going to be about, and now it's like, why don't you just tell us? Like, what was Avalon going to be about? You know, um, that would be cool. That would be cool to know. Versus, you know, what's your advice for new writers? You know, just stop. You know, just ask him what Avalon's going to be about and what the Harangan mines looked like. You know, like something he could answer. Um, but yeah, no, of course, like if Game of Thrones was never made, of course, no, it would never be the juggernaut it is today. No, not at all. This channel wouldn't be here. Like we wouldn't be talking about it. Of course, like Game of Thrones is incredibly relevant, and that goes for a lot of like media kind of stuff. Like, you know, it's like saying like, would DC Comics be as important if Super Friends wasn't on and Saturday morning? Of course not. Like all of these things help like bring up. It's amazing how many comic book fans I know who got introduced to comics through the original X-Men series from 95 to 97 or whatever. That they're like, oh no, that like cartoon like got me interested in X-Men, and so I started buying X-Men comics, and then I started becoming like a comics fan. So it's like the gateway drug, you know, the series. And so no, yeah, it would just be like how many of us were introduced to the series through the show. I read the book first, but I probably wouldn't have picked it up. Like my friend bought it for me, and he was like, oh, you need to read this. There's this great show that's going to come out. It has Sean Bean in it from Lord of the Rings. It's going to be great. You need to read this book. It's like incredible. And I was like, okay. But it was all related to the show existing and the show coming up, you know? So, but yeah, does he ever regret it? No. I mean, think about the life like George got to live, all the different things he got to do. He got to travel the world, meet all of these movie stars, go on talk shows right and left, be super famous, got $100 million, you know, of wealth. His life just became much more interesting, and he got to do so many cool things. Because of the show. So no, I don't think he regrets it 1 second. If he did regret it, if he was really like, oh man, I really wish my book was finished, I really wish my magnum opus was finished, he'd be writing his magnum opus. He doesn't really give a shit. Like the rest of us seem to have more. We lament his failure to finish his magnum opus much more than he does. He does not give a shit. Like, you know, oh well, it's gonna go unfinished. Fine. Like he gets to have all these other things that he did that warm his heart more. You know, the shows and his movies, and you know, his bar and his train and all of these things. You know, so I think we value his magnum opus more than he values his magnum opus, despite what he says in his in his blogs about how like it's really important to him. It's like, well, if it were really important to you, you'd have finished it. Okay, some other things are more important to you. So, why do all the direwolves instinctually hate Tyrion, the only decent Lannister at the point of the story? What did time-traveling Bran or the pro-war Children of the Forest faction tell them, or are they simply just vibing off their humans? That's a very good question, because you start thinking like, okay, say, so like in situations of like, okay, Grey Wind doesn't trust the phrase, and you're like, okay, well, he smelled something and he knew, and if they only listened to Grey Wind, right? And in those situations, like that all makes sense. But the problem is that you're right that there's these other situations where the direwolf acts counter to what we would expect. So, and I'm thinking mainly of, yes, the direwolf attacking Tyrion. Like, why is Summer mean to Tyrion? And why is Ghost nice to Mel? You know, like does any of that make sense? Um, and so you can kind of say, okay, well, is it something in Bran? Well, Bran doesn't seem to really fear Tyrion. Like, so it's not really something subconscious there. It's the same with like Ghost. Like if he was sensing something subconscious, like John clearly has like angry feelings about Mel. Why wouldn't Ghost have those subconsciously if their brains are linked? So it doesn't seem to be related to actual facts in the world or mistrust or anything like that. It doesn't seem to be related to the subconscious of their owner. So then you say, okay, well, does it have to do with some puppet master like Bloodraven or time traveling Bran or something like that? But then you wonder, like, okay, well, what's the point of it? Like I suppose you could argue, okay, had Summer not been mean to Tyrion, would Tyrion have lingered at Winterfell a day longer? And then he wouldn't have run into Cat at the exact moment that he did, and all of the events of the story wouldn't have gone the way they've gone. Like, was it just like random events that needed to be pushed into place? Like the direwolves had to act that certain way at this moment to necessitate the story to make it to where it is. Or I that's the probable situation, but I also understand that it's a cop out. Like, oh, time traveling Bran planned it all. The direwolves had to act the way they had to act in order to get the story to this point for time traveling Bran's reasons. That's the probable answer, but it's also the cheapest answer. Because now the direwolves can act however you want them to act because they just need to get the characters to where they are. There's no real logic to it, other than they have to do what they have to do to get us to this point. That's the probable answer, and it's also the cheapest answer. There might be something more, like just biological. Like I put in the fanfic that Mel was carrying around lavender oil, and the lavender oil like calmed the direwolf. Like there might be something with regards to Tyrion, that just makes like that something regards to his smell, something that he eats or whatever that causes them to hate him. I have no idea like what that would be. Like they're just like, oh, the guy drinks, he drinks too much, and they just don't like the smell of it. I'm trying to think real quickly, like, what smells can cause a dog to bark? Do they? Unfamiliar smells: alcohol, citrus, perfume, wildlife, smoke. They can sense. They can have these scents when others can't. Anxiety, maybe. It might just be Tyrion's anxiety. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's as simple as like Tyrion was drinking too much and he smelled the alcohol, or Tyrion was like had anxiety and they smelled the anxiety and barked at him. Like that's like the very boring answer. But why do the direwolves hate him? I don't know, because the story needed them to hate him to push the characters to a certain point. But it'd be funny if it were just like they smell the alcohol and they don't like it. They smell his fear and they don't like it. So, but it doesn't seem to be from the human reactions, because Bran doesn't feel that way, you know, and John does feel that way about Val, and so an interesting, very good question though. Um, half of wins is going to be battle chapters. Is Euron working with the Mad Maid to drown Old Town? I don't think so. I think from what we've known of the Hightowers so far, they seem very interested in prophecy and very interested in going with the winners, and trying to figure out the right way to go about, who to side with. They apparently back in the days of Aegon's conquest, like consulted prophecy, and then eventually came around to accepting Aegon and his dragons, and renouncing their own kingship and things like that. And then later on, they seem to be on the fence. Well, no. Later on in the Dance of the Dragons, they of course wanted to marry in to get control of the dragons, and maybe they were secretly poisoning the dragons off. We don't know about the Old Town conspiracy. And then they seem to be on the fence during the Blackfire Rebellion, supporting both sides. And now it's the same. We hear about Leighton Hightower and the Mad Maid consulting books. They talk about Leighton and the Mad Maid together doing this, that they're in lockstep. So I imagine the Mad Maid is supposed to remind us of the Dana the Dreamer, from who had visions, and for the Targaryen family to leave and things like that they're checking visions and stuff. So I don't think there's any cooperation between Euron and the Hightowers. We have no evidence of that whatsoever. And in fact, what's strange is that Euron's decision to attack Old Town seems to be fairly spontaneous. That he does mention at the Kingsmoot that he's going to conquer the world, right? But then during the Reaver chapter, it's everybody else on the Shield Islands that are like, yeah, let's attack Old Town, and he's like, fuck, because he was supposed to go off to Slaver's Bay and things like that. And then all of a sudden he's like, God damn it, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to send Victarion instead. And that seemed to be George's original plan too. Originally, Danny had this vision of the person with the blue lips and the gray smile and all of that, smiling sadly. Not blue. Oh, does he have blue lips in it? But he's smiling sadly, and he changes that to Victarion in the Winds of Winter sample chapter. So I don't think there's any cooperation in that sense between Euron and the Hightowers. Or at least we have no evidence of it. We have no reason to think that that the Hightowers would welcome in Euron to attack their city for some reason. To what end? What would they be going for? Why would they want, other than they saw a prophecy where the city was drowned, and now they want him to destroy the city, but that would be out of nowhere, you'd be finding a motivation out of nowhere from prophecy. But we just don't have, we don't have any evidence of anything like that. So we know very little of the Hightowers, unfortunately, and what they're up to. But yeah, Wheel of Time season 3 was great. It was the best. It was the best so far. How would you feel if, instead of complete Winds book, George started releasing shorter novellas covering individual point of views? I would like that a lot. I think anything he releases is going to be better than nothing. I love all the chapters. I love all the sample chapters that he released. And, Carmine and I are probably in this coming week, we're going to do a discussion about whether splitting Feast and Dance was a good idea, because there are pros and cons to that. But I think I think that, in my opinion, in the end, releasing them separately was a good idea. But I think there are some downsides that came from that. Um, and so in the same respect, I think that if George started releasing stuff, yeah, that it would help. One of the things I've kind of learned about when writing myself is that the more there, as you write, like everything you've written before is a distraction because you know you can go back and make it better. And you can go back and make it better infinite times. Like it'll never be perfect. So you can always go back and make it better. But all the time that you're doing going back, you're not going forward, you know? So I think that had imagine it, had George still had the material from A Feast for Crows there, would he, while he's writing Dance, go back and try to edit it and change it? I think he probably would have. Like I think he probably would have without any pressure to release. Because at some point you just got to be like, it's done, it's out. It's the interesting thing about the fanfic is that like release a chapter and then it's out there. Some people have asked like, would you go back and want to edit it? And it's like, sure, but man, that takes a lot of time. Like, so it's just best that it's like out there and done, and you move on with your life. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good, But yeah, I think that's. Let's see here. In addition to all men must die and all men serve, the text also includes all men must sleep and all men must know fear. Natural laws? That's an interesting thing, because I was thinking about, by bringing this up, I was thinking about when in the prologue, I think there's a statement, like I think Lazy Leo says like a man must eat. And it's weird because like some people have read that and they said, oh, a man, like Jacques Hagar speaks like that. He says a man must do this, because he doesn't, and that it was strange that like in that line, Lazy Leo was using a Jock and speak, but it's probably a coincidence. Like a man must eat, all men must sleep. Who says all men must sleep? Let's see what we got. Oh, this is so. All men must sleep, Bran, even princes. Comes from Jojen. He says that, and then all men must know fear. That's also from Bran. The 13th man to lead the Night's Watch said, a warrior who knew no fear, and that was the fault in him, she would add. For all men must know fear. A woman was his downfall. A woman, interesting. All men must serve. All men must sleep. All men must know fear. I mean, do I think these are natural laws? No, I think these are coincidences. I mean, you can go through and look at. I mean, there's all men must, but then there's all things like John's service was the duty he owed his liege lord. I'm not ungrateful, Ned. You of all men ought to know. All men are made of water. Do you know this? When you pierce them, the water leaks out. All men carry murder in their hearts, yet even so, the poisoner is beneath contempt. She wondered if all men were false of the seven kingdoms. All men must swallow the sour with the sweet, high lords and eunuchs alike. All men are one flock, or so we are taught. So all men know me for the true-born son, Stephen Baratheon. I mean, going through this, I think it's just that all men is a Georgism. generally. And then happening to have all men must is just a reaction to that. All men must choose where they stand. The war has been waged since time began. All men must choose where they stand. One side is R'hllor. So, I mean, yeah, even with all men must, it seems like there's a few. Just a Georgism. All men must sleep, all men must die. All men must swallow the sour with the sweet. All men must choose where they stand. All men must... is that all of them? All men must serve. All men must bow to him in the end. Is the stranger. I guess that's the same as all men must die. All men must grub in the dirt for food. There's a few of them. There's a few of them out there. Just George. 36 years old. I've never eaten an omelet. Huh. I can understand like Big Mac. I mean, Big Macs it's tasty, but an omelet, that's an interesting one. It's just eggs. Big Macs are I mean, people are like Big Macs suck. No, Big Macs are fucking delicious. Like this is like let's not be like ridiculous here, okay? Like this is these people that are like, I don't like the taste of McDonald's. I'm only into like finer cuisine. Like at the end of the day, it's like it's on a very basic biological level. These things that, there's sugar, there's fat, there's protein. It's gonna taste good. It's like you can't, like a Big Mac. It's bread and Thousand Island dressing and ham and beef and some pickles and some onions. It's not going to taste bad. It's fucking delicious. It's a Big Mac. Like, come on, come on. Let's not be ridiculous here. We know that Big Macs taste good. We know that like objectively they taste good. They're filled with all of the things that touch taste buds that make them feel good. Everybody, I understand that we all want to seem better than McDonald's, but come on, of course a fucking Big Mac tastes delicious. Like, of course it is. I wish it weren't, but come on. Tyrion farted. Oh, this is why, like, Tyrion is the villain of a Clash of Kings. So there's that. Like, are the dire wolves like know the short term? The thing is a lot of times, even looking at like what the visions do to people and what they make them do, you're wondering like why, like why does Ned get his Tower of Joy vision, which like causes him to stay in King's Landing? Like why? Like what's the point? Like who wants him to die? It certainly didn't help him, or like, there's a few of these situations where people have these like visions and then they do something really weird. And sometimes it doesn't help them in the end. So you're like, somebody is working against them. Why are so many places named after long night heroes? Intar Et, Azor Ahai, Ashai. It's the world stuff, so potentially all meaningless. Well, that's the thing. So for people that don't know, like when we say the world book, the World of Ice and Fire was a book that was man, it's been so long now. If you think about how long it's been since the World of Ice and Fire was released, Jesus, this is what's kind of fucking crazy. That book was released 11 years ago. 11 freaking years ago. The World of Ice and Fire. But the World of Ice and Fire was something that Elio Garcia had been bugging George with for years. He's like, hey, what we could do is and he was right. Elio was right. He's like, look, you've got all of this like information in here in your books that people want to keep straight. Like you could include like an atlas and like history of different of different houses and like that, and it'll just be all there as like as a resource. And George was like heeing and hawing for many years, like I don't know, okay. But his publisher loved the idea, and they're like, fine, go for it. And so in the end, like George got a little possessive, and he was like, okay, like Elio and Linda, like did do a lot of writing, but then George went and took control a lot of it and like rewrote stuff. But one of the parts that Elio said that he was given a lot of freedom over was the Essos portion. And so in the Essos portion, he said he was surprised that actually a lot of the stuff that he like just wrote and came up with got placed in. And so that's kind of the one place that you where you kind of say, well, it's not really, George wasn't really thinking about that. Because if you read the Essos portion, there's nothing on Vastoth Rock, there's nothing on Karth, and there's nothing on Slaver's Bay. There's nothing on the places where the story actually takes place. But all of a sudden, if you want to talk about the Thousand Islands or Jogo Nye or E.T. and the Empire of the Dawn or Lorath or something, there's all this information on those places. But there's nothing in there on Karth or Slaver's Bay or Vastoth Rock. So yeah, I do think that it's the one thing where you're like, well, that's Elio stuff. Like Elio, he wrote a bunch of like stuff relating into the fact that maybe there's this monomyth about Azor Ahai, and every place in the world like has a similar story to Azor Ahai. Maybe they have similar things to the others. He included a lot of that around the map. He included a lot of references to previous George's works and Thousand Worlds and stuff like that. He included a lot of references to Lovecraft and stuff like that. Elio did a great job. Enough of it that people are like, oh, is this George lore? Well, most of the Essos stuff was Elio lore, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. But I think like, yeah, having these heroes have the names is just, a fun thing that Elio did. But oh, Tyrion calls Bran a cripple when Summer enters. Bran hates being called a cripple. Summer perks up in anger. That could be it. It's true. That's a good point. I think, but Shaggy Dog is against him too. But this Shaggy Dog attacks everybody. So I mean, he makes a point. Make a point there. I don't think Ghost ever really liked Tyrion, but then again, Ghost is reacting to Jon's anger because Jon and Tyrion got into a big fight. You could make the argument that that's the subconscious, but why is Ghost so calm to Melisandre and stuff like that? And shouldn't they calm down like once he does the saddle and things like that? So and that's a good point. It's a good point. Oh, is the Mad Maid the mysterious female figure in the Aeron's Forsaken vision? Well, the woman next to him with the flame is like he's sitting on the throne, right? So you'd think it would be something about him and his kingship, which is why like you're sort of led to believe that maybe it's Dany or maybe it's Cersei, because these two characters would be related to his kingship. Of course, the show goes with him pairing off with Cersei, so you kind of think it's the Cersei thing in the end. I mean, I know the first time I listened to it, the first time the Forsaken chapter was read, I was like, okay, woman of flame. Like, okay, obviously you're supposed to first think it's Dany, which means it's not Dany. It's going to be a fake out, which means it would probably be Cersei with like wildfire. And then so when Euron got together with Cersei in the show, I wasn't really a surprise because it was just kind of like prediction from the Forsaken chapter. Could Euron's him be time traveling Bran? I mean, that's my suspicion because I mean it's either him or Bloodraven or something, but um, you know, one of the two. But I guess the him what they're referring to is Euron makes a weird um reference in the Reaver chapter. Um, let me get the quote here. He says, the of him. So the actually I don't know about the of him for that. Let me think about this again. So in the Reaver chapter, Victorian, they're talking about Euron's mongrels, and he says, and Victorian says they're of your body, and Euron says so are the contents of my chamber pot. None of them is fit to sit the seastone chair, much less the iron throne. No, to make an heir that's worthy of him, I need a different woman. When the Kraken weds the dragon, brother, let the world beware. And so that's the question of like to make an heir that's worthy of him. Um, some people think perhaps the Iron Throne is a character in that sentence, and he's saying that the Iron Throne is a man, and so the heir has to be worthy of the throne. Um, and then there's this like more suspicious of like Euron serves somebody else, and he's saying to make an heir worthy of him, I need a different woman, like that there's some higher power, higher calling that's like pushing him. I mean, the simple answer is that he's just masculine. He's making the Iron Throne into a character to make a to make an heir that's worthy of the Iron Throne. I don't know if the Iron Throne is ever referred to as a him at any other point, um, but that would be the simplest. Is that the Iron Throne is being treated as a character in itself. Um, because in many times they talk about the Iron Throne as an actor. Like the Iron Throne has named the Lord of the Dreadfort as Warden of the North. You know that the Iron Throne. Um, so one could argue that he is the like. One could also argue that like if he's sitting the Iron Throne, he is the Iron Throne, and so he's referring to himself by saying an heir that's worthy of him being the king. I'm just trying to like I understand that like in the past I've made videos on the him being this like very mysterious thing and weird thing that he said, but when we do talk about they do talk about the Iron Throne doing things like that the Iron Throne can be an actor, as in like it's a synonym for king. Um, uh, but I'm trying to find other good sentences. I mean, it's not used much. He's not called an actor that much. but it has happened. This is the price of the Iron Throne, the air. Sat his Iron Throne. It's not happened that much. I wonder if that's one of the only few times, the time where they're talking about the Iron Throne has commanded that Bolton be the Warden of the North. If that's one of the few times where the Iron Throne is actually like referred to as the office of, or the character of those who sit it. But yeah, and I guess in a more fun sense, that it's time traveling Bran. I mean, somebody has to be the people that giving him the visions, right? Like Euron definitely has visions of wanting to jump off a tower and all of that. Like clearly somebody's been talking to him. I assume it has to be time traveling Bran or Bloodraven or something. But do you imagine Tybalt, the Dreadforth Maester, to be a larger character? Has to be the best healer in Westeros to have Theon not die of shock, blood loss, and sepsis. I imagine Stannis needs his skills. I mean, that's a very funny joke in the sense that, like, yeah, there's no way in hell that the tortures that Theon endured would not have killed him. Like, it's just ridiculous. But this kind of goes, I'm trying to think of some other characters who have been through a lot that, I mean, granted, medical care in Westeros is solid, like 19th century, 20th century, like knowledge. Like the fact that they use like boiling wine is like, oh, you understand sterilization? Like that, you're way in this other world. Strange things like that, or the fact there's other weird things that put their medical situation later, like the fact that maesters birth babies rather than midwives is also really weird. That's not standard. Men stepping in, doctors stepping in and birthing babies instead of midwives is also a fairly recent thing. But yeah, that it's a funny joke in the sense that Tybalt would be the greatest healer of all time, in the sense that character survived. I think there's a few others. I can't believe that. I mean, it's weird that Qyburn has made the mountain live. So whatever he's doing there with whatever surgery he's doing, whether it's magical or just regular surgery with regards to doing dialysis with kidneys or whatever, it's just, that's crazy. I mean, Strong Belwas surviving his poisoning is pretty nuts. I don't know how that happened, but I mean, he loses how much weight? Like, oh my God. I mean, usually with regards to poisoning, you're just destroying the liver, right? Like, or the kidneys, like either one, like losing weight. What's the point of that? But why would he lose all of that weight and muscle and somehow survive? I don't know, but I'm trying to think of some other like crazy ones where the character should definitely be dead after lose. I'm surprised Jaime losing his hand. Well, I guess Qyburn again. I guess that's pretty incredible that he was able to just have his hand chopped off and days later have it treated and survive. But man, it's true. I mean, there's no way that Theon should be alive in any way. But man, Tybalt's the man. He's the man. How can it be useful to Stannis? I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know how it can be useful to Stannis. I, 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 I always love the rare times when Preston becomes patriotic. I don't know if it's necessarily patriotic. I understand that like a franchise being born in America doesn't have much to do with like the American system or like American way of life. I understand that some people think like food is the most important thing of culture. What it's the most important thing of all, I guess. But it's I think about the I don't know. I kind of associate like patriotism with like government systems, but I mean, there's look, there's obviously if you're raised, being raised in America, there's things I really like about America, and there's things I do that are very American. I love fucking ice in my drink. Okay, like I will defend American watery beer all day. Like it's watery Bud Coors Light has its time and place. Um, like I'll defend our use of the word soccer. There's some great, but what you gonna do? What you gonna do? I mean, uh, but it's always these random things too that like set people off. Like America, like for instance, the United States calling themselves America triggers Latin Americans constantly. They're like, you're not America, you're the United States, like you're so arrogant that you think you just call yourselves all of America. It's like as if like we made that decision, as if we like consciously woke up and are like, we ought to be calling ourselves the United States. Like we've been calling ourselves America for hundreds of years. Like we've all been like raised on this, right? Um, but it's like things like that. I'm just like, how is it any different from the fact that like Colombia calls itself Colombia? Like it's not different, like in any way. That we call ourselves America. But there's all these like little things that can trigger people that I'll defend. But then other things I won't. Like the fact that we use miles instead of kilometers is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I vaguely understand why we use Fahrenheit, but like it's the fact that like there's no reason we should be using miles. Like come on. Like no way. No way. Was Thoros a slave? Mel was, Makora was, but Thoros doesn't have tattoos or an obviously bleak backstory. He was given, but some different way. That's an interesting question. I mean, I think the solution to this is like probably, the not that I mean Mir has slaves, but the fact that he's like from Mir is very different from how we hear about other cities, right? Like we hear about Tyrashis and Mirish and Lysenes like as regular people traveling the world who are not involved in the slave trade, and though they kind of exist. But then when we get to like Volantis or Slaver's Bay, we get this idea that just everybody is either this like incredibly wealthy noble with like 500 slaves that they owns, or a slave themselves. Like you don't get there's a handful here and there where who are not like that, but it's just like this overwhelming idea of like the culture of Volantis is just that it's just this massive slave owning society, and everybody else is a slave. Well, when we get to and so like when you talk about like Makoro, well, he's not one, so he's going to be the other, or like a Shy as well. Maybe I guess we don't know much about a Shy, but it's again we have this idea of slaves and um, so maybe in Mir the relationship is different. The slaves there's not as many slaves. I mean, obviously it is a slave city, but I'm trying to think if there's any. we just hear about these Myrish characters. The Mirrors, the slaves of Volantis are slaves of Mir are collared. Well, is that from oh, that's just from the World of Ice and Fire. So my instinct is to say no, that he wasn't a slave, but who knows? I mean, and when the temple buys you, like how are they freed? Like that's the question about like Melisandre. Is Melisandre still a slave owned by her temple, or is she freed? Um, I don't know. I don't know. Um, but yeah, I guess he should get a little. Now you're like making me want to have a little Thoros backstory on where he comes from in Mir, and why what drew him to the temple and things like that. Um, I would also guess that if Thoros were supposed to be a representative of the faith that was designed to convert Robert, that you wouldn't want to use a slave. Like you would think that a slave being brought and talking to a king and trying to convert him would not be a relatable character and not be very convincing for Robert. Like Thoros, I mean, obviously Thoros wasn't successful in his convincing but if you are the Red Temple in Mir and you want to convert Robert, who are you going to send? Well, I mean, they did a good job in the sense that they sent Thoros, an incredible fighter. They're like, oh, well, this guy's a fighter. Let's send a fighter. Okay. So I'm going to say that Thoros was probably some sort of like, I mean, he's with his fighting ability, he's either a sellsword or he's from a noble family where he has enough time to sit around practicing fighting. So it's kind of one of those two. I mean, if I were the temple, I'd be like, I'm going to find the highest born, greatest fighter to send to King's Landing to try to convince Robert. I would want somebody like Robert to try to convert Robert. So I mean, my gut is to say that Thoros is from a good family back in Mir, and that he had trained to be a great fighter, and that they picked him because he was the best emissary they had to try to convince Robert to convert. Now that said, when trying to convert Selyse, granted the story of Selyse's conversion is not consistent, because in Clash of Kings they say that a red priest was sent to her, but then we only hear of Melisandre being there. They sent a slave. I mean, they sent a former slave. So maybe they sent her because she was hot, and they knew that they eventually wanted to seduce Stannis by sending a hot chick. So maybe it's a different situation, because Thoros isn't trying to seduce anybody. But I would think that if you're gonna send someone to try to convert Robert, you'd want to send somebody that is the most like Robert. So you'd want a highborn person who is a fighter, would be my guess. So I'm gonna say, based on very little, that he is not a slave. That's my guess. Oh, will Dunk end up getting a Valyrian sword that we haven't heard of yet? It's a good question. I don't know. We've never heard of Dunk having a Valyrian sword. And then you have to say, like, well, where would it go after? Where would it go after he gets it? I don't think Dunk would ever have a Valyrian sword. It's just, the fact that Jon Snow gets a Valyrian sword is already ridiculous. Like like somehow Dunk having one, it just doesn't seem right. Um, yeah, Euron is saying I'm him. That's probably, but sorry, I'm the Iron Throne. Mm, 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 mm. Maybe the him is the great other. Yeah, but we never hear of I mean, keep in mind, guys, like there is no great other. Like, okay, like there is no great other. Like the religions are all bullshit. Like, can we like let's all settle on that first? Like, I know some people are like, "Oh, R'hllor is real and he's a real god sending visions." No, there's no R'hllor. There's some other puppet master sending the visions. I'm not, I would say it's probably time traveling Bran, but even if it's not time traveling Bran, it's Bloodraven or Marwyn or Quaithe or Littlefinger or some other dude with a glass candle or some magical ability, but it is not a god. There are no gods in the story. Okay, zero gods. I mean, unless you're counting trees. There's no gods in the story. There's no great other, and there's no R'hllor. That just goes against everything George has ever written. Like George would never write an actual god being in the story. He would write about people pretending to be gods or thinking that they're gods. But there's no great other. Shade of the Lamp is here. Um, oh no, I love ice. Preston Jacobs 2025. Rough. A rough cut. Ice in my drinks. I mean, the other thing about Americans, like I love me some free refills, man. It's like so American, but I love me some free refills. Is Aegon the only Platonic guardian, as in Plato? This is something that like I was pretty convinced of, that like George was writing a parable for uh, so when we for Plato's Republic. Um, so when you go through Plato's Republic, Plato talks about the kind of evolution of different ruling styles, and they debate like what happens, like what's wrong with democracy, what's wrong with dictatorship. Like their criticism of democracy is that it leads to dictatorship, um, and in the end, they kind of all settle that the enlightened king is the is the best way to run a society, and that if you for these enlightened kings, they would have to go off and like be in essentially king training camp their whole life, training to have all of the right experiences to be the proper ruler. And having read that, and having read like all of Ice and Fire, I was like, well, I mean, that sounds exactly like Aegon's situation. It sounds exactly like Egg's situation. I was 100% convinced that George is going straight on to Plato's Republic. And there's even mentions in Plato's Republic of like the most beautiful eyes in the world are like violet eyes, and everyone knows this. And I was like, oh my god, he must be like pulling this stuff. And so I like asked George, and then I also read like the the first story of Tough Voyaging has a very kind of similar situation where different characters are trying to get a hold of this seed ship to be all powerful, and in the end, tough ends up winning. And I was very convinced that George was going straight for Plato's Republic here. And the thing is I wasn't the only person in the world. I started Googling and finding that all sorts of people had written essays and Reddit posts about how like they thought there was massive similarities between Ice and Fire and um, and Plato's Republic. And then I I met George and I asked him about Plato's Republic. And I asked it mainly in terms of tough voyaging because I didn't think he would answer me in terms of Ice and Fire. But he said, yeah, no, I read Plato's Republic in college maybe, but I totally don't remember like anything about it. And so since then, like people have had different reactions to it. And they said, well, some people are like, that's fucking bullshit. George was lying. I've definitely heard people that are like, no, it's definitely totally thinking about Plato's Republic when we're talking about like Aegon. And then there's people like, yeah, we all fucking imagined it. We were all stupid. George isn't that deep. Stop overanalyzing everything and thinking you understand everything, Preston. Like, there's that idea. And then there's also the idea of like, well, when C.S. Lewis wrote the Chronicles of Narnia, C.S. Lewis definitely was talking about Plato's Republic in that. Like, so, and that led into like all fantasy writing. And so that somehow on some sort of subconscious level, because C.S. Lewis was so influential, all fantasy writers kind of pull in this C.S. Lewisness into the writing. So I don't know, so I lean towards the middle that, I was just reading into something that wasn't there. But it's certainly a very like, sorry, this was it. But this, it's definitely just one of those situations where I was like so convinced. I was like, fuck, like this is so similar. He must be talking about the enlightened king and all of this, the enlightened ruler and Aegon having like the special raising and all of that. And in the end, he was like, George told me, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. It's like, okay. I'm more certain than Moonboy fucked Cersei that I am that we landed on the moon in 69. Jeez, you think Moonboy fucked Cersei? I mean, we definitely landed on the moon. Oh God, hot debate to use a top sheet or straight to blanket comforter. I mean, I try to use a top sheet, but if I'm lazy or if I can't find the sheet, I'm gonna use the comforter. But like, yeah, I mean, just so you don't have to wash the blanket comforter so often. I mean, washing a blanket comforter is a much bigger pain in the ass than washing a sheet. Washing a sheet is so easy. So like, yeah, no, you want the sheet there. It's the same, it's the same principle as like wearing underwear, it's you want the sheet there. I mean, come on. But yeah, so there's definitely times where you're like, I can't fucking find the sheet. It got kicked off the bed and it's somewhere. It's the middle of the night. It's dark and you're like, "Fuck, where's the sheet? Fuck it." Oh God, there's those situations. Couldn't the visions be some form of astral plane connection rather than a puppet master? The visions seem to be interpretable and true. Determinism. This is a question of like, are visions in the story that are just visions for the sake of visions and they're true just for the sake of being true, that they don't have any godly sender, that they're just there. And I'm trying to think of like a good example of, so for instance, in Terminator 2, in the direct cut, if you watch Terminator 2, the theatrical cut, you'll notice that there's a little weird plot hole in the sense that the very day that Sarah Connor is trying to break out of the insane asylum, her son is trying to rescue her, coincidentally, like out of nowhere. Why would, of all the days, she be breaking out on the same day that the Terminator and her son are coming to rescue her? That's a massive, massive coincidence, right? Because she's been in this institution for years, right? So it's explained in the kind of director's cut that there's a deleted scene where Kyle Reese comes to her in a vision and he warns her, hey, you need to protect our son. He's in danger. Like, you need to break out of here. And so she chooses to break out of the insane asylum based on this vision that she has, right? Now, there is no fucking explanation for that vision. There's no higher power in the Terminator universe. There's no like science-y, time travel-y explanation for it. It was just a fucking vision for the sake of being a vision that came out of fucking nowhere, you know? Now, I think for that reason, that's probably why the scene was cut. Even though like, they even got the original actor, the Kyle Reese actor and all that. So it was just there. It was just a vision for the sake of a vision. Now, could that be a situation in this story that visions just fucking happen? I would say that it would be really weird when in the story we clearly have dream senders. Like from the beginning, we've established that the three-eyed crow is sending visions to Bran. And then eventually we discover that Bloodraven is there and he says that he can send visions to him. And that, Dany is getting visions and they're related to this star, this like stars whispering to her. And then later on in A Dance with Dragons, it's established that like Quaithe has a mask filled with stars that's whispering. And so, Quaithe was the one sending the visions back in A Game of Thrones. And Bloodraven might have been the one sending the visions and here and there. And then we find out that there's glass candles, and the glass candles are sending visions, and at least to Aemon, that Marwyn and Aleros were sending visions to Aemon. So we know that dream senders exist in this story. So to have a situation where like you have clear dream senders where there is a cause for the dreams, but then to have visions and dreams and prophecies for the sake of them independently without cause running in parallel in the story is just kind of weird. I mean, it would be like the equivalent of, say you had the Alien franchise, where we know that on the one hand, xenomorphs come from facehuggers that get on people and they burst out of their chests. And that's how we get xenomorphs. And you're like, yes, we have that. But we also have xenomorphs that just spontaneously come into the story out of nowhere. And they are also lurking around, running around, needing no egg, nor bursting from chests. Like, you wouldn't have those both together. Like the spontaneously created xenomorphs and xenomorphs that came from eggs and burst from chests at the same time. Like, we are given clear causes for visions in the story. Like very clear, specific causes. Like, they can be given from glass candles or from werewoods, specifically from people like Bloodraven, the Three-Eyed Crow, Quaithe, Marwyn. Oh yeah, and they just fucking happen spontaneously for no reason. Like, no. I think there is a cause and a sender for every single vision. A cause and a sender, and is what I think we can get here. Plus, like, George doesn't believe in determinism. Like, we can read like the Armageddon Rag, and the Armageddon Rag is a story where he is getting visions without any description, like any reason that we know of in the story. But at the same time, he just doesn't follow them. He sees the world ending and they're like, well, just change it. And he's like, okay. And so he changes it, and the ending is not the end of the world. But that is a story where George did do like visions without any cause. But this story has causes for all of them, I demand a shitmouth point of view. Yeesh, you two. I thought I was prudish. Oh wow, they didn't even let you put shitmouth. Jesus, that's funny as hell. Shitmouth, yeah, shitmouth is one of those characters that we kind of sense that is not that bad compared to the others, and so it's. I also wonder, and because shitmouth isn't that bad, even though these guys are all kind of complicit in the sense that they're around the mountain. Like they're around the mountain. They know how bad the mountain is. They know how bad Tywin is. They know how bad who they're working for. But I get it. You're in a poor world and you don't have many options and things like that. So we kind of sense that shitmouth isn't so bad compared to the others. I'm thinking that Dunson is not that bad, probably. Because all we hear about Dunson is that he took the helmet. And now he's on the fucking death list for fucking taking a helmet. Like, geez, it's just a helmet. Just a helmet. Does he really need to die? Does he need to die? So this is one of these things we're going to face the next Arya chapter. Because, I mean, in case you didn't get it, Dunson is in the vision at the beginning of the Mel chapter. But this question of like what has Dunson really done to deserve to die? But yeah, we'll see. I mean, maybe we'll learn more about Shitmouth. Shitmouth's got to come back. We don't know where Shitmouth is. If Shitmouth stayed at Harrenhal or Shitmouth went to Bravos. So maybe Shitmouth will be hanging out with Dunson. We don't know because Shitmouth. We know that Bonifer Hasty makes the offer to he makes the offer to the Mountain's men. But then we don't know what happens to Shitmouth after that, So, according to semi-canon source, Shitmouth joins Jaime's retinue as it heads to the siege of Riverrun. Like, what? Like, is that from this weird app? Like, like what is what semi-canon? It's either canon or it's not. Semi-canon. But yeah, I think maybe Shitmouth will be in the next Arya chapter with Dunson. Poor Shitmouth. Will Sweet Robin have a hand in the fanfic? Oh yeah, and it's. I mean, his hand is it's Blackfish. I mean, Blackfish is going to be his hand. That's just the way it is. Yeah, I mean, it goes without saying that like the hand of the king is Blackfish. But yeah, and Blackfish is going to be controlling. Or trying to wrest control. I mean, you're going to have this like three-way struggle, right? Where you've got Littlefinger, Sansa, and Blackfish trying to, maybe a few other characters, maybe Donald Waynwood and things like that will be influenced, but it's all kind of through Blackfish. But yeah, Blackfish is hand of the king, in the fanfic, and they'll be struggling for power. Because I do wonder, do you declare a regent? Would Blackfish be regent, and then who would be hand? I don't know. Would they feel like they need it? It's a good question. And see, now I'm questioning myself. I always thought he was just going to be his hand, but then the question of like, oh wait, do you have a regent on top of it? Could you hand and I mean, you can be hand and regent, right? Was Tywin both hand and regent? No, Cersei was the regent, but she had no power. Cersei was regent, but she had no power. But can you be hand and regent? I guess. I can't see why there wouldn't be any. But nonetheless, Blackfish is going to be in control. Thank you, Horizon. See what Horizon bound posts. There it is. Thanks, Preston, for inspiring me to travel more. Oh, thank you, Horizon. And I haven't even told like half the stories of like. Sometime maybe I should do a stream of just like talking about like where I've been in the world, because I know I spent a lot of time talking about places I lived, like my time in Taiwan and Japan and China, and like my time in Germany, my time here in Santo Domingo. But there's some and in Jordan and Egypt and stuff. But there's weird stuff that's happened to me at other places, you know, that's kind of fun, you know. Talk about the time I almost like where I rolled a car in New Zealand, or things like that, you know. Oh, would showing the Whispering Wood in season 1 make it worse? I don't know. You know, that's a good question. I don't necessarily think that like showing the battles or removing them really changes things that much. Like, I understand that some people really love the Battle of Bastards and stuff, like really, but was all that fighting like you enjoy it at the time, but in retrospect, like, do you really value it that much? How much did we all really suffer from them cutting Green Fork in season 1? Like, yeah, maybe it was a little disappointment at the time, but we all still look back at season 1 as being the best season. And they didn't have Green Fork, the big battle. So I do wonder how important big battles are in our memory. Like we certainly liked them at the time. They're exciting at the time, but looking back, I'm like, do I care about the Battle of Bastards? Do I care, like, beat for beat, like which slash of the sword happened here and there? Honestly, the only thing I kind of remember from Battle of the Bastard is John like breathing and reaching up and looking into the sky, like that scene of him being smashed, and like the circle thing. I kind of remember the circle thing with the shields, and that's about it, you know. But had they added the Whispering Wood, which was a very show thing later on, to just add battles that might not even be in the show, be in the book, like Hardhome or something. I don't think it would have. I just think it would have been the same, I guess. You know, I mean, they did battles fine. I don't think Dan and Dave, all the criticism you can give, no one ever said that there was any bad battles. Like they added that battle between like the Mountain and Brienne, right? No one cares like that it was there or not. Like the battle between Brienne and the Mountain, like, did it matter? So it's a funny thing, yeah, that it doesn't really matter if you add or take away a battle. But anyway, thank you, Horizon. Makes me feel good that I inspire people. Why are you compelled to make prophecy true in the fanfic? I'm trying to think, like, I mean, I guess in the sense that like only in the sense that like time traveling Bran is like trying to move players by showing them how things could be. I think Danny is inspired to make prophecy true. And things like that. And I do think that in the sending of messages, some people might intercept messages. Like, it's not really like Danny seeing a Greyjoy on the hull of his ship and stuff like that. It's kind of like, in motivating her, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't change her decisions at all. She didn't need to receive that vision. And then later it becomes true from Victarion's point of view. She's not even there. Like, this is a lot different than like when she came into Yunkai and was like, oh fuck, this is the vision. I'm going to fulfill it right fucking now. Boom. Like that changes her motivations. But like the Greyjoy thing, like what was the point of it? What's the point of her receiving it? What's the point of the Ghost of the High Heart receiving her visions and talking about them? None, except for the audience. I mean, it's for the audience. So, I mean, you're right that like I shouldn't be compelled to fulfill it, but it's like only in the same sense of like the ghost, like in the same sense that the Ghost of High Heart tapped into something, got some visions, and then you feel obligated to make them true. But yeah, her like Ghost of High Heart, there was no function for her to receive visions and tell them other than for the audience. Like it doesn't change Arya. Like Arya doesn't change her decisions based on what she hears. Nobody does. Thoros of Myr doesn't do anything. He's actually like listening and being like, "Oh, this is really interesting stuff." No, it doesn't do anything. I mean, it's literally, it's literally just service for the audience, right? Because it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything to tell Dany about the Red Wedding and all that. So I think, yeah, it's just fucking there. It's just there for the audience. So that compelled in the same way. But I mean, you make a very good point that narratively speaking, it's stupid. Like why does the Ghost of High Heart exist? No fucking reason except for the audience. So the audience goes, "Oh, I know what that is." Characters didn't fucking care, I thought Shitmouth was traveling with Jaime. We have no evidence of that. It's just something somebody wrote in the wiki. We last see Shitmouth at Harrenhal. We don't know if he took Bonifer Hasty's offer or not. Clearly his friends didn't. So you'd think that maybe he just followed. He'd followed Raph the Sweetling and other people to King's Landing and started working for Harry Swift. I mean, I'm just trying to think, like, what would you do if you're a shitmouth? Would you? I don't know why he would follow Jaime, because like, what job? Like, who would you be under? Like, what's your job? How are you getting income? Like you're not part of a household. Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand why Shitmouth would be, like, of all the places he would be, I don't see why he would be with Jaime. Like, is Jaime accepting him into the service of House Lannister? Did that happen? Like, what he should have either taken Bonifer Hasty's offer to work and get a tract of land and become a vassal of Harrenhal, or he decided to like follow the rest of the Mountain's men and get hired by Harry Swift. So I don't understand why he would be with Jaime. Could Sansa be regent in Blackfish at hand? Unfortunately, right now, everybody thinks Sansa is a bastard, and unrelated. So like, Sansa shouldn't. I mean, if she revealed herself, maybe they could do something like that. But to make a young girl regent would be a little weird. She would have to be a little older. If she were in her 20s, maybe something like that. But it doesn't really make sense as a young girl for her to be regent, especially as a young girl bastard. Yeah, watch every Preston stream, and the Mecha Adventure was my favorite. Thank you. Any specific ideas of how Arianne will seize power after the Tyrell and Northern forces are spent? Aegon and after him, Dany's army will still remain. I think the idea with Arianne, and I don't have it completely down, but the idea is that and this has to do with the letter she sent at Storm's End, where she told them to wait. There should be a misinterpretation. There was like two, remember, like dragon means war and war means wait or something, and she sends war thinking it means wait, and in fact there's going to be a misinterpretation and they're going to actually go to war, and the forces will go forward and join, the Ironwood forces will go forward and join with Aegon, and then she'll be kind of entangled with the Dornish forces there, and that she'll have a position in the sense that she's like now representing Dorne inside the Aegon camp. Now, of course, there's still the Dornish forces in the Prince's Pass, and so there'll be some interesting things going on here, like what's going on, where that the Ironwood forces have been separated from the rest of the Dornish host. And so then there's this question of like what happens at that point. When Quentyn arrives, will he join Arianne with his dragon? Will he join Doran? I haven't quite figured it out on that. But the idea is that the cavalry in the Jon Con chapters was destroyed, knocked off the cliff. The idea is now they're going to easily capture Mace Tyrell and his forces. They're going to surrender and bend the knee. The rest of the Tyrell forces at that point are pretty much destroyed. Randall Tarley's still going to have some stuff going on in King's Landing, but he's not in a good position. The Reach is probably going to quickly surrender and support Aegon at that point, and at that point, the kingdom will largely, at least the Reach and much of Dorne, will be supporting Aegon. So when Dany arrives, they will, be dealing with that. She'll have to side probably with the Riverlands, with Sweet Robin and the Riverlands, against Aegon's forces. But I think there's some complications with Dorne I have to figure out. But it's mainly that she's seizing power because she is integrated within the Aegon cause. She's going to be seducing Aegon. She might even convince Aegon that he needs to marry her and things like that. So, keep in mind that Arianne's motivated to do this because she doesn't want to be subservient to her brother. Like she's kind of thinking that at this point she thinks that Quentyn is part of the Dany cause, which makes her want to support the Aegon cause because she kind of doesn't want to be. She doesn't want King Quentyn. She wants to be queen. She wants to be on top. She's got that insecurity, Was on vacation and saw Steve Miller at the beach club. Geez, my mom tried to chase him down to confront him. Think she was in the right or wrong? I think she was in the right. I mean, granted, I understand that I wouldn't want your mother to be like thrown out of a club or arrested or anything like that. I understand that there's personal risk, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't, if there's somebody horrible around and you have a chance to tell them that they're horrible, I see nothing wrong with that. Like I understand that some people might be in like, oh, leave this person alone. No, like, no, this is like, why wouldn't you want to tell them that they're horrible and make them feel horrible? They should be suffering for every moment that they're causing pain to the world. I don't see anything wrong with her doing that. The guy's life should be confronted at all times. He's a disgusting individual that's caused massive pain and death in the world. So, yeah, that's no, I see now. It was bold. It was bold and risky and morally correct of your mother try to chase down and make this guy's life uncomfortable. I just can't see what the other position would be, that like that somehow the morality of like being civil at a beach club is somehow like above like all of the evil and pain that he's caused. No. I mean, it's I mean, I can understand not doing it for fear, for your own fear, but no, if your mom wanted to do that, good for her. Good for her. I see nothing wrong with speaking up and calling people out. Which Quaith prophecy is least likely to be true? We're talking about like, to go north, you must go south. But this is like the perfume seneschal one, or all of them. The glass candles are burning. Soon comes the pale mare, and after her the others. Kraken and dark flame. Lion and griffin. Sun's son and mummer's dragon. Trust none of them. Remember the undying. Beware the perfumed seneschal. I mean, the east-west thing, I think Dany is pretty much doing that in the sense that she's treading in her past. She's going back, right? In order to go forward, she must go back. She's doing all that. That's fine. But yeah, if we're talking about, the pale mare came. Okay, the sickness came. You could say, or you could say her Dany's horse or whatever. It doesn't matter. Kraken and dark flame. Well, Victarion and Makoro definitely came. Lion and griffin. Yeah, like I guess griffin is wrong. She's wrong about griffin. Sun's son, if that's Quentin, and the mummer's dragon, Aegon. I guess she's wrong about mummer's dragon, and she's wrong about griffin. I mean, unless no one's really. I've seen different theories on stuff, but like obviously, like you're supposed to think the son's son is Quentin. Now, maybe the son's son is like the second son's and things like this. There's other options out there. But when you're next to a bunch that are so obvious, like obviously Kraken and Dark Flame are Makoro and Victarion. Obviously Lion is Tyrion. And the Griffin is obviously Jon Con. Like there's just no one else could be Griffin. Like Griffin is just so obviously Jon Con. But Lion and Griffin, I mean, there's no way that Jon Con is he's off in Westeros. Sun's son and Mummer's dragon. It's a weird pairing there because the Mummer's dragon, Aegon would have been with the lion and the griffin. The son's son is with somebody else. So you could argue that the Mummer's dragon is something else. Yeah, I mean, it does sound like they're going to be kind of wrong about Griffin and Mummer's dragon there. That somehow, with her glass candle, Quaith saw them on the river and got it wrong. She got it wrong. Like she can't actually see the future. She just like looked across and was like, "Oh shit, they're on their way," and then they weren't on their way. The Griffin didn't come. He changed his mind. So I guess it's like Griffin and Mummer's dragon, are going to be wrong. I mean, that's my explanation to that one, is that when she looked through her glass candle, they were still in the Shy Maid. So she was fully thinking that they were all going to come. And then in the end, the Griffin and the Mummer's dragon didn't come, is my guess. We can try to come up with like, who else would Dany think? But what's the function of being ambiguous I mean, in the end, like, Dany thinks that the perfumed seneschal is Resnack, and she stops trusting Resnack because of it, or she doesn't trust him as much. Like, the purpose of these prophecies for Quaithe is just to cause Dany to not trust anybody, to be completely ambiguous, and to have her just hate, like, go off and do her own thing. These are some of the big things I'm trying to like deal with in my mind as we come to the Dany 2 chapter. Because in the Dany 2 chapter, I'm having Dany meet Quaithe again. And it's like, fuck. What is Dany going to be like? Is she going to be like, no more bullshit? Who the fuck are you, Quaithe? And then who is Quaithe? And how is Quaithe going to respond to all of this? That's the real question. But, if Dany's going back to Karth, and she has to confront Xaro and Quaithe, and got to figure out that plot. It's a toughie. It's a toughie. Oh, are you a Bran 3, a Game of Thrones true believer? Extant Ashi's dragons are probably a relic of an earlier George plan, but I have faith. I mean, it's a good point. I mean, Bran 3, I do think is a very important chapter, in the sense that it's like really establishing what George thought about the greater plot and Bran's narrative journey and the time travel and things like that. Like, I do think it's all there. Like, I make a big deal out of the fact that he sees the other dreamers and the 1,000 other dreamers. So this is what he's talking about. He says he lifted his eyes and saw clear across the narrow sea to the free cities and the green Dothraki sea and beyond, to Vace Dothrak under its mountain, to the fabled lands of the Jade Sea, to Asshai by the shadow, where dragons stirred beneath the sunrise. And yes, I think, unfortunately, this has been retconned by Fire and Blood, because now we know that like Alyssa Farman is the one that got Dany's 3 eggs, and they're not from Asshai. Because in A Game of Thrones, we're told that the dragon's eggs come from Asshai, and we had no reason to think that they didn't come from Asshai. Like, the dragon eggs come from Asshai, but so I agree that this was a earlier plan, that the dragon eggs came from Asshai. And so when he said that there was the dragons stirred beneath the sunrise, that like the return of dragons came from this far off, exotic, distant place, I agree with you that it was a relic. Now, I do think that for the fanfic, I'll probably have powers in Asshai, like be responsible for something, be responsible for something with regards to like Illyrio's plan and things like that, to try to make that fit, because I feel somewhat obligated to make it fit. But I mean, I'm a true believer in that. Yeah, at the time, I even think that like at the time of finishing A Dance with Dragons, George fully thought that like maybe the dragon eggs came from Asshai. But once he did Fire and Blood, he's like, oh, actually, they're from Alyssa Farman. Oh, okay. Well, you forgot about the fucking Bran vision. There are a few. I mean, there are a bunch of these retcons. I mean, we've gone over this a million times, that everything from the Dance of the Dragons is like, in the main series, is now like wrong and retconned. Rhaenyra and Aegon are now many years apart and are half siblings, and Criston Cole is no longer the Kingmaker, and he's not that important. Even though it was very relevant to all those conversations that Jaime had about But whatever. I think you're completely right, though. That I think at the time, I think even up until A Dance with Dragons, like the dragon eggs came from a shy, and now they don't. Oh my God, who's Steve Miller? However, read Roger Zelensky's Lord of Light. I always wonder if the gods in Ice and Fire are essentially the same thing as Hindu gods. So I imagine that this is a situation where these are probably like human characters that have really big powers, and that over time people start thinking of as gods or something. Let me quickly look at. I mean, obviously, Roger Zelensky is like one of George's big heroes and friends. Yeah, they mutate their minds. People, Lord of Light, set on a planet colonized by Earth, called the Star of India. They mutate and channel their powers. They can transfer their souls to new bodies, and they're reincarnated by mind transfers that allow them as immortals. The protagonist Sam has developed the ability to manipulate magnetic forces and takes on the role of the Buddha. And that everyone with the technology can be reborn like this. I don't know. I mean, I don't think I mean I don't. I'm trying to think if I know any George R. Martin stories that use this aspect of like humans like achieving God status through technology, or having being perceived as gods. And I don't know too many. I can't think of any. I mean, you are right that like Bran going into the werewood tree is kind of that, right? He's enhancing his body, and then reaching God status. He's becoming God. Is that any different from the character of Sam in the story becoming Buddha, and that he wants all of the masses to join, to resurrect? If Bran would want everyone to join the werewood. I mean, that there's a physical possibility of that. However, you know, George's philosophy in at least A Song for Leah was, even if I die, even if I have no afterlife, I'm choosing my own path, like rather than joining like the heaven, the Shkeen, you know. And that there was something like noble in George's mind in that quest, that the atheist has a scary path of like truth and authenticity that is lonely, but you know they choose it anyway, than the comfortable heaven of the Grishka, of the Shkeen Grishka. And so like when I think of like Bran's character, and Bran has all of this power and he's become a god, but he certainly am influenced by the show. Like in the show, the werewood gets destroyed and Bran leaves. So he's in a sense killed God. I mean, he's literally killed the gods, which is the existential thing of like, oh, once you kill the gods, then man is responsible for their own destiny, right? Like, God isn't coming to save you. You're responsible for coming up with your own moral code and forging your own path. There's prophecy isn't going to prophecy and God. There's no God's plan. There's no prophecy. There's no God's way. Man is responsible for it for themselves. Like, that seems more like George's way. Like, I get it. Like, while Bran is in the werewood net, I think you're right that we have a situation where Bran is like a god, but I think the destruction of religion and the killing of religion and God is dead is a very important aspect to like George's philosophy on life and literature, that like the characters must choose where things go. I mean, and even the show ended with the importance of human choice, and that Dany didn't want to provide human choice. She essentially wanted to be a god for them and make all the decisions and define what morality was. And like, Jon kills her because, like, if there's anything that all the philosophies agree on, is that human choice is an important aspect of things. So I think you're right that there's aspects of the Lord of Light in there, but I don't think that, and I don't know exactly how this book ends or anything, but I kind of see the show being the blueprint of like killing God. Like, that just fits. It fits with what I know about George and his other stories and things like that, like A Song for Leah. Like, killing, like, not having a part of God and afterlife and all of that and forging one's own destiny is like an important thing. So, oh, some people don't know who Steve Miller is. Stephen Miller. So, I mean, not Steve Miller, like the Stephen Miller band, like Abracadabra. Stephen Miller is deputy chief of staff. He's probably the one running the country. I mean, Trump his mind's dead, so Stephen Miller is probably the one doing everything right now. He's a pretty evil dude, and like, he growing up, everybody that knew him is just like, oh my god, what a fucking dick. Like, this is a kid that like in high school would like try to have clubs against immigrants, and like in college he was like, people were telling stories that he was like angry that people were being nice to the janitorial staff or something. It's like really weird shit. He's just a mean-spirited like piece of shit. And now he fucking runs the country. When, if you're wondering like why everything's going to shit, it's because of Stephen Miller. Will Bran expose Peter and Varys' schemes in the book? I hope not. I would think that it seems a little easy. That's the one thing I didn't like about the show, that Sansa and Arya don't get to do their own thing. They're literally just saved by Bran. I hope that doesn't happen. Like, I hope, certainly that's not the way we're going to write in the fanfic. I want to have like Sansa defeat Baelish and somebody appropriate defeat Varys. Somebody, I'm trying to think of like, who is the best person to face off against Varys, because Varys touches so many people's lives, but he's most integrated in Tyrion's story, but is he going to be hanging around that long? I don't know. Maybe. Have you seen the movie Weapons? Best movie I've seen this year. Really? Weapons is a mystery horror movie Directed, written, and produced by Zach Krieger. Non-linear narrative. Okay, I don't want to read anymore because I want to be spoiled. Is it still in theaters? It's got Josh Brolin. Oh shit! Zach Krieger, the guy from The Whitest Kids You Know, that guy. Do 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 do. Hey, what's going on?
Our boy has landed, Mr. Trey.
Oh yeah, Trey has moved. Trey moved to New York from Atlanta, so he Carmine's been tracking him. He's like
Yes.
the Santa tracker.
He just posted on social media that he just got to New York, and he's nervous about starting his real job, his super duper corporate job tomorrow. So make sure you message him. Tell him good luck. I've been
Okay.
messaging.
Yeah,
Oh, by the way,
I mean,
weapons.
I'd like to know. Yeah, I'd love to know like what exactly he's doing for his job and things like that. But yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't told me either. I don't know what the fuck. I don't know what the fuck he's. I don't know if it's an office job. Watch Weapons. I saw it. It was fine, but I feel like you would really like it.
Okay. I mean, it's really interesting that it's Zach Krieger from The Whitest Kids You Know. Like The Whitest Kids You Know is just like so different, you know.
Can I give you the premise? Do you mind? I won't spoil anything. Of course.
Sure.
Like 19 kids, for whatever reason, woke up at 3:17 a.m. and all ran outside their houses in one direction. Nobody knows why. And it all came from the same woman's classroom. And now the town believes this woman did something or said something. And we don't know what she did, who she is, what's going on in the town. But for some reason, these kids are missing and nobody has any idea why.
Yeah. Okay.
So I saw it. I thought it was fine. I know people have been saying it's like the best movie they've seen in 10 years.
Okay. Well, it's interesting.
I feel like you would like it.
Did you download it? How do you see it?
Yeah, I downloaded it. You want the site?
No, I mean it's fine. I can find it on my own. It's fine. But like I'm just it's certainly not on streaming right now.
Not yet. No. So
okay.
It was okay.
The good quality that you saw, or was it filmed off a screen?
It was all right. It was decent quality.
Okay. all right.
Holy shit! Yeah. To that person there, Griffin. Yeah, man. Stephen Miller probably has a lot of security around him. If your mom chases him, she's
like I'm surprised someone might like shoot her or something. But I mean, bold. But yeah, I thought her dad was afraid she'd get arrested. Yeah, absolutely.
You're right, by the way, that it is Trump's, like, the people around him running the country, and they need him alive so they can enact his agenda, their own agenda, because Trump doesn't know dick that he's signing. He doesn't read shit. He doesn't know anything.
He's just, I mean, he's so out of it now. It's just, I mean, this is so weird. He's more out of it now than Biden ever was. And yet there's no fucking discussion of this. Every time people do imitations of Trump, it's always like this, he's always quick-witted still. And it's like, no, he's fucking gone, man. He's gone. But yeah. But man, but hey, your mom is bold. Your mom is bold. She's a brave one. She is a brave one. But good for her. Good. Did you consider the outcome? Did you consider an outcome where the mutiny succeeds? Yeah, I guess so. I mean, in the show, right, the mutiny succeeds, right? And they just and Davos and Melisandre are just kind of like inside a room for a while. I did consider a situation where the mutiny succeeds, but at the same time, would that matter? Because on the right and left, they're surrounded by Longspear Rick and Mourner White Mask. Like, wouldn't like they just then get attacked by Morna White Mask and Longspear Rick, like right after that. So I mean, I don't know how I don't know how the mutiny succeeds. Can you think of any way, Carmine? Like Bowen Marsh, somehow he would
The
have
only
to. They would have to like win and then have no one tell Morna and Longspear Rick, and then like go and attack, recall them or something. Send a raven and recall them, and then capture them, and then recall the Morna White Mask and capture them, and like be sneaky like that. I suppose.
the only way that could maybe possibly stop all the craziness and like throw a monkey wrench in everyone's plans is if a third party shows up and everyone has to focus on the third party, or some kind of crazy appearance of some character or something that everyone's been waiting for. Something, or maybe I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe 1-1 goes out of control some more. I don't know.
I mean, what we did in the fanfic was had them nearly succeed. Like if it weren't in the way we wrote it, if it weren't for the boar, they would have won. They would have succeeded. You know.
That boar has a higher kill count than so many characters.
Yeah, like we have them winning, we have them losing merely by fluke, by the fact that they didn't plan for the boar, and the boar goes around mauling people, and then the tide turns. But like, say the boar didn't happen, okay? And so yeah, the mutiny, they burn the shield hall, cause chaos among the wildlings. The wildlings are just going this way and that, and then they have the upper hand on the King's Men and the rest of the watch because they have the high ground on the switchback stair, and they keep people in the barracks. They take over, and then maybe like maybe like Morna White Mask and Longspear Rick hear about the mutiny, and they just abandon their post and head south, and like that's the win. Like Morna White Mask and Longspear Rick are like fuck it, and they just bounce, and they don't. Like they just abandon their post with the chaos, and that's
It's just really dumb to pull something like that without any assurances from at least Solis or the Boltons, like somebody, like having a backup plan, like having someone to guarantee like everything goes smooth outside of Castle Black. I don't know, just I don't know what George is gonna do, but
I mean, people have gone over this with like Balon Greyjoy's plan. Like a lot of people are like, how did Balon Greyjoy ever fucking think that his plan was going to work? Like his plan was essentially just like take Deepwood Mott and that's it. Like end of plan. Like somehow he was going to hold the North all by himself and bargain with Tywin later or something, like that's about it. But everyone's like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like there's not enough of them. They can't hold the North. Like
are you gonna bring that up in the fanfic, like how Balon's plan was kind of doomed from the start?
Yeah.
Are you gonna touch more on that?
Probably. I mean, people also talk about like Doran Martell's plan. Like, how did he think that Quentin could ever do that? That one's definitely going to get touched on. The fact that like, how do you make sense of these plans that don't make sense in any way? But yeah.
I messaged you. I think I messaged you. I called you about like after I read the Melisandre. I'm like, yo, this boar, bro, is like the greatest fighter ever of all time.
The boar. I mean,
top 3 fighters: Arthur Dayne, Barristan, the boar, bro.
Top. Yeah, no, I think the boar is number 1. Boar.
He's got more confirmed kills.
Alien Earth is amazing. I need more coverage of this, please. And Stephen Miller is evil as yes. Stephen Miller is super, super evil.
By the way,
yeah.
I have to show you possibly the funniest comment I saw in your Alien Earth comment section. I'm trying to find it. It's this is why I love the comment section so much. It's fucking hilarious. Someone said Episode 1, Moro is such a heartless ass who mistreats the crew. Episode 5, the crew are all clueless imbeciles. Moro was right to let them all die. It's understandable that what he was done was, it was understandable that he was done with all the bullshit. And then someone replies to that guy going, right to let people die? Are you a psychopath? And the dude comes back and replies, are you watching an alien movie and expect people not to be expendable? Are you part of the idiot crew too? Oh my god.
It's a bit much. I mean, I do understand that the people, and so okay, obviously in a lot of these in every horror movie, people act incredibly dumb. Okay, I think the dumbest thing in all the Alien franchise, and this goes for all of them, is you're capable of interstellar travel, right? You're sending ships across the galaxy to different planets. Okay, big ships, and you're still using fucking thin, flimsy glass where like things could just like shoot through the glass and get on people's face. And you know, like she all the octo monster, all the eyeball monster needed was for the thing to fall off a table. And you're like, oh my God, it's really, you're using glass? What year is this? Like, would you do that today? Would you, if you were containing an eyeball monster, what container would you put it in? Would you put it in glass? Like, or would you choose like bulletproof glass, bulletproof like plastic that's just like thick, something really durable? Like, you know, or something, they have this thing where they can just like slide open the top and the little blood guys just slide open the top. You're like, how is it that easy? Oh my God, guys, come on. How, you know, in that respect, I'm like, oh, this is pretty bad. Now, were people really heartless in it? I think you're supposed to think that the greed is getting to people and the fact that they like don't value each other's lives, you know, that they're just like, fuck it, you know, we'll put him to sleep here. And it doesn't matter that he's got a face hugger on his face and the face hugger gets out and kills everybody, you know, they just don't.
I gotta agree with Morrow, man. Like after he literally tells the captain, seal off the thing, get them out of there, don't open him up, let it go. And she goes, no, we got to try to save him. Go ahead, perform the surgery. 2 people died, or technically 3.
Yeah, I mean, like, that in that situation, how did we know that those bugs were going to have a neural gas that would kill them? I mean, that was pretty like that I don't know if I could suspect.
They're aliens. Like there's always a trick up their sleeve. It's not like Earth.
I mean, I guess now when I look at the scene, I mean, I don't know what the eyeball monster did to her body, so like she could have been infected with anything at that point. So, and there was only space for one person, so I can kind of understand. You kind of understand like what he's doing at that point. Like, fuck, it's just, this has gotten too complicated. There's too many aliens running around loose on this ship. Fuck it, like close the door. But at the same time, it's like he's also evil in the sense that he's still trying to like bring it back to his masters and get money. So,
did you notice the Star Wars Praetorian Guard in the Weyland Yutani CEO room?
There was something similar to that. I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, that took me out of it for a little bit.
But it is an amazing show. I mean, we joke about it, but it's just like, yeah, no, it's an amazing show. It's I don't know. I'm trying to think what we saw this year, but like, it's probably the best thing I've seen this year.
And, we saw Andor.
It's not finished yet, but what's that?
It's not finished yet. Well, you're right. It's not finished yet. So far, it's great. The ending will really impact the overall score. But we saw Andor. Andor was fucking phenomenal.
Oh, you're right. Andor is probably still the best thing so far. You're right. I can't displace Andor, but it's fucking good. Alien Earth.
This year.
It has no right to be so good. And like I say, it was just, as I said in their video, it's the third. It's the pleasantly surprised. It's the third time I've been wrong about like cash grabs for IP. Like, you know, Andor, Dune Prophecy, and Alien Earth are like, oh shit. Even when you know, it looks like a cash grab, a pointless cash grab on an IP, it can actually end up being good. So, you know.
Just so you know, we've seen Andor so far, Daredevil, The Wheel of Time. Have you seen Murderbot? I saw a bit of Severance.
I haven't seen Murderbot. No.
Murderbot's supposed to be really good. I'm sick of the Skarsgård. I can't with this anymore. Severance came out. I feel like another
Severance season 2 wasn't very good. I didn't like Severance season 2. No.
Oh.
Severance season 1 is great. Severance season 2, no.
Dexter is currently premiering, Dexter Resurrection. I think it's time to let the Dexter thing go, but that's just me. What else came out? White Lotus. Did you watch that? I feel like that's up your alley.
No, I didn't watch. I saw some scenes from it. It seemed good, but I didn't watch it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Watched a couple of things. We watched a couple of things. We'll have to, towards the end of the year, we'll go back and check out what we saw.
Yeah. Thoughts on why no Stark has ever been in the Kingsguard? I mean, are we told that specifically no Stark has ever been in the Kingsguard? Because we don't know all the Kingsguard, like we know the Kingsguard essentially like during the time of the Dance of the Dragons and now, and that's about it. Can we say that no Stark has been in the Kingsguard? I want to. I mean, I don't know if that line has been there, but it'd be interesting if one has. I mean, they all have to be knights, right? There's never been. I think they say that there's never been before the Hound. The Kingsguard have always been knights, but could there be a Stark that was a knight? See, the thing is like you could there's an out. I understand that, like, okay, logically speaking, they're Northerners. They don't follow the faith of the Seven. They're not knights, and the Kingsguard has to be knights. But Jorah Mormont is became a knight, even though he supposedly followed the gods of the North. So it's not unheard of. I mean, that you could have a knight that could be a Stark. It's possible. But I mean, certainly Bran wanted to join the Kingsguard, so he didn't think it was out of the sense. So like Bran certainly didn't think that like him joining the Faith of the Seven was in contradiction to the old gods, that he could be a knight and not reject his northern faith at the same time. So the only thing is, like, would Bran have idolized, if there were a Stark in the Kingsguard, wouldn't he have talked about him in his stories? Maybe. I mean, he might have just been a nobody, but nonetheless.
This will probably be answered in Blood and Fire, the Fire and Blood story, part 2.
So, I mean, what I can say is that, like, yeah, there's probably been no Stark in the Kingsguard just by chance or by religious difference, but it's not 100%. You could definitely have a Stark in the Kingsguard. And for like, oh, we would have heard about it. Well, no, we hear people don't think about shit all the time that George wants to like include later. So, thoughts on Intel deal and murders of Yemeni. There's always let's start with Yemen. Are there any? Oh, this is Israel with their yeah. So yeah, this gets into all right, my thoughts on that. So in the Middle East, there is a conflation of the idea of Iran and Iran-backed groups. And so there are various groups that have accepted like assistance and aid from Iran. So you can say, okay, well, we've got Hamas, you've got Hezbollah, you've got a few groups in Iraq, you have the Houthis in Yemen, and so you could say, okay, like if you were a right-wing Israeli, certainly Netanyahu wants people to think this. He wants them to think that they are all just the same thing. They are arms of Iran, and we have got this big enemy to fight. And that when Hamas attacks us, that justifies an attack on Hezbollah, or that justifies an attack on the Houthis because they are all arms of Iran. But of course, it doesn't really like stand to much scrutiny. Like, we assist Ukraine. Would we accept an attack from Russia on us? We would think that would be unheard of, despite the fact that we assist Ukraine, right? Like, so providing assistance to a group does not necessarily implicate you in their deeds. And certainly Iran, when Hamas did October 7th, like, Iran was certainly like, dude, we didn't do that. But and there are many times when Iran instructs a group to do something and the group is like, no, fuck no. Like Iran instructed Hezbollah to like attack Israel more, and Hezbollah was like, no thanks, like, not into it right now. So like, these groups do act independently, and yeah, there can be assistance and money and training and things like that. But what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? Because countries provide assistance all the time to each other. So when I say like, okay, the attacking of Houthi leaders in Yemen, do I think these Houthi leaders are good guys? No. But I also say, like, the attack is politically motivated. You want to look like you're doing something against the myth of like the arms of Iran kind of thing. In truth, like, Iran-backed groups are very complicated web, and you have to know each one in each political situation and how they relate to each other. So it's done. What I think about it is, I think it's done by Netanyahu for like his own political reasons, not for any security. I don't think it makes Israel safer, or in any respect, or it's just something done for political reasons by Netanyahu. Now, Intel deal. That's weird. Let's see.
I think what this person is talking about is how there was a recent deal between Israeli intelligence to give spyware to ICE. Did you hear about this?
Oh, great. Yeah.
So they can listen in on people's phone calls and whatnot.
Yeah, well, fantastic. I mean, look, there's a lot of a shit ton of corruption going on right now, and I can't really get into the domestic shit too much, but right now, but it's I'm just saying there's a lot of weird, fucking strange corruption and insider dealing going on, and it makes me all sick. But yeah. Do you think George ever caves and releases more sample chapters? No, unfortunately, no, I don't. I think it would be great. The only way I would see him releasing one more is if he finished and he was like really pumping and promoting the book. But even then, like, does he need to do that? I don't know if he ever needed to do it in the first place. But that was the only way I could see him releasing another one, is if he actually finished the book and wanted to like promote the book and get people excited about it. I would love to see, an easy one is if he released Barristan 2 or Tyrion 1, but ones that he's read already. But why he hasn't done those? I mean, that would be the minimum. Like, the minimum would be like to read those two chapters again, or to release them again. but he hasn't. I mean, so it's been like 10 years since what the
What I don't understand about why what is that thing that George used to do back in the early 2000s where one of the stories was like Arms of the Kraken, or there's a story about Daenerys. Was it in like Rogues or something? Not Rogues, like Dragons or something.
So yeah, no, he released Blood of the Dragon
Yeah,
in Dragon magazine, and
right.
then
So why doesn't he do that? Why doesn't he just release like a short little story that takes place post Dance with Dragons and I don't know, Howard Waldrop collection or something? It'll drive up sales for Howard and his family, or
yeah,
Howard's
Arms of the
family.
Kraken was also released in Dragon magazine.
Right. So he could just do that. He could just put it at some kind of story in some magazine or some collection to help out some of his friends. Every author loves to say how George helps out other authors. He could do that.
Um, well, one, like, he doesn't need to anymore. Like back then, he was like trying to advertise his books for people to buy them, right?
Mm,
So he doesn't
no.
need to do that anymore. Two, like, magazines are pretty much dead. I guess Dragon magazine technically still operates in digital format, but it's, I didn't know that. No, the world hasn't been reading Dragon magazine for a long time. But it's like he doesn't need to. He doesn't need the advertisement. Because before it's like, oh, you guys are into fantasy. Here's a portion of my book. Go buy my book. Um, but this
No,
we're
you're
at a
right.
different time. We're at a
He
different
doesn't need the
time.
advertisement. HBO is great advertisement for him. So are these YouTube channels. But if he puts out a Howard Waldrop collection of short stories or whatever, no one really knows who Howard Waldrop is. But if he
Mm.
puts in like a short story in that collection, or maybe if he wants to release a Wild Cards omnibus or something, he can put in a little short story of Ice and Fire in there, drive us some sales.
Okay, here are a few. So he doesn't need advertisement or anything like that. Here are the few situations where I could see another chapter popping up. Say his friends have a short story collection, kind of like, Dangerous Women or whatever, and he wants people to buy it, so he like includes a sample chapter so that people will buy his friends like collection of books. Like I could see that happening, but that's about it. Like try to think of it, like any reason else, but it's too bad. Yeah, I don't. He had his chance. It's been 9 years since he's done a chapter reading. 9 years since the Forsaken. Like he could easily read Tyrion or Barristan, but he doesn't.
If
So
he
I don't
wants to
know.
be really funny, if he wants to be super funny, put a little short Dunkin' Egg story in the next cookbook. Like right in the beginning of the cookbook, put it right in there, and there it is. You drive up those cookbook sales, because who the fuck is buying
Yeah.
those? Besides Glidus, who the fuck is buying those?
Huh. Huh. He didn't have any visible security. We saw Eric Trump there in 16. My dad pleaded to my mom not to say anything. He didn't try and stop her this time. Yeah, I don't know how much. I don't think that's the thing is he'd have to hire his own personal security, and he'd probably just figured that the beach club had its own security that would handle it. Um, Keep in mind that like Stephen Miller is not a millionaire. Like he receives a regular salary for his job. He hasn't had major book deals. The guy appears on Fox News for money. Like he's you know it's not that he's not like doing fine, but he's not in the same millionaire billionaire category as other people. So he might not feel he has the money or means to like surround himself with security guards all the time. So
Did you know that's one of the reasons why Romney is getting out of politics?
why is that?
Because at some point he was spending $5,000 a day for security.
Wow. No, I mean it makes sense. It's funny because I remember I think it was Al Franken talking about like congressional salaries, and he's like, or no, I'm sorry, it wasn't Al Franken. It was the guy Al Franken used to play, Paul Simon. So Paul Simon, the old senator with the bow tie, um, he was like, yeah, it seems like congressional salaries are really high because they're like $170,000 a year or something. He's like, but when I was a congressman, I felt like I was spending all of that money just like traveling around and doing stuff and like meeting people. Like you go through it. And it's, I understand it seems like a lot, but you spend the money when you're doing it. And so, yeah, I mean, Stephen Miller, later on he'll have his Fox News and book deals and whatever that he can write, but um, to make his money. But yeah, right now, I'm sure he's doing fine, but he's not in the same realm as everybody else. Though he has all the power, he has all the fucking power. Fanfic, are we going to get a Shireen chapter? Also, is it going to be Selyse who leads a confused Shireen through a crowd to a funeral pyre where she realizes her mother condemned them both to die? It's probably not going to be like we saw in the show. And I don't want to like spoil things too much, but obviously, like if you read the Mel fanfic chapter, like we're building up to the characters wanting to burn Shireen. That's happening, like that build up. And so, but the question is like, how much is Mel implicated? How much is Axel Florent implicated? I didn't make Selyse be the one to do it in this one, but I don't know. We'll figure it out once we get to the next Mel chapter. But it's going to be. I've told Carmine what I'm gonna do, and Carmine's like, "What the fuck?" Like there's gonna be a big fucking surprise. Like there's going to be a lot of surprises at the wall. And Carmine's a little shocked. He's like, "Really? You're going to do that?" And I was like, "Yes."
The one thing I will say, I
yeah.
am a little, just a tad bit disappointed with your direction. Not because like the Mel chapter was not bad. It's just I wanted to. I know you don't remember this, and I'll try to find the live stream we talked about it. But you, me, and Trey had such a great discussion almost a year ago at this point. I think last September, actually, a year ago, maybe, where we're talking about like all the craziness that could possibly happen right after Jon is stabbed. Is Satin gonna die? Who's next? Is like what does this person do? What does this person do? And then holy shit, is that Stone Snake who shows up at the 11th hour? What? Like it's just, that was such a fun conversation. I was kind of hoping you would do something like that, but I understand why you didn't. You made a very good point about how you have to move the story forward.
Have to move the story forward. I mean, and there was a lot of shocks already, and there's going to be a lot of shocks to come. I mean, I know in the next Mel chapter, we've got to deal with, things moving towards the burning of Shireen, and the Justin Massey showing up with Mormont and things like that, and the Weeper getting closer. And so, but there's going to be, I haven't decided exactly what's going to happen, but I guarantee there's going to be a lot of surprises. It's going to be very shocking. Some people are going to love what I do, and some people are going to really hate what I do. But it's not going to be like the book, the show in any respect. Like,
oh no,
yeah, because Stannis isn't going to be there. He's not going to be there. Like, first of all, Stannis isn't there. Like, he's not at the wall. So whatever's happening, Stannis isn't there. So that's the big thing.
How could he be there? Stannis is in Winterfell. Right. He's the hooded man.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's true.
Hey, have you decided what you're going to do with Patchface yet? I know what you're going to do with Patchface, but have you sat on like what he actually is? I'll give you an example because we're talking about the Mountain of Skulls thing. Have you ever seen the World War Z movie with Brad Pitt?
Yeah.
Do you remember the conclusion he comes to as to why the zombies ignore certain people? Do you remember?
No, what was it?
It was because those people have terminal illness, and therefore they were pretty much dead already, and therefore the zombies kind of ignore them. So is that what you're going to do with Patchface and the Mountain of Skulls thing, where the others just pretty much ignore him because he pretty much died already, kind of? Is that what you're going to do?
No.
No, nothing like that, because that's a major theory in the fandom. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, no, I understand. No, um, I don't think anything like that. Plus, there's also, there might be a lot of holes in like what we're gonna perceive as we go back and forth from characters and stuff. So, um, yeah, yeah. So we
There's this
shall
other
see.
theory I love with Patchface, and I love it because it's a 40K thing. Do you know what blanks are in 40K? A
No.
blank. A blank is someone that has this mutation where psychic stuff around them is null and void. So if you try to do anything psychic, if you try to warg, if you try to greens, whatever, around this person, you just can't because they're a blank. They create a psychic null field that nullifies everything, basically.
Hmm.
And the theory is that the others will never kill Patchface because he is a blank, and they will never be able to see or touch him because they can't perceive him like being in existence. If that makes any sense? I kind of like that theory simply because, like, yeah, yeah, I'm a 40K fan, so.
Um. Yeah, no, a lot of discussion about like security of people. People are like, wait, the U.S. government doesn't provide security. No, you get security for when you're doing something in official capacity. You can have security, but like in your personal life, you don't get security. Like like when I went to Iraq and Afghanistan, like I had security, like in Iraq and Afghanistan, while I'm doing my work. But um, you know, back in Washington D.C., no one's protecting me. Like, yeah. Whatever. So, man. Um, Fortunately, at this point, wow.
That's another theory. Like, I don't know. People have this idea that George will simultaneously release Winds and Dream the moment his heart stops. I don't know why people have this firm belief. It's so weird. I don't know why.
Look at the point in which that would happen, and a lot depends on like, is he survived by his wife and things like that. Then it's all up to his wife, and then there's the question of like, well, is the wife not alive? Then like, which next of kin has the rights to all of his stuff? And in the end, you're gonna have this like big stack of like papers and stuff in files, and people would have to sift through it, and it would take a long time, and things like that, and then to figure
Let's
out
be
like
real here
what
for a
to do.
minute here. Let's be real for a minute here. And this is going to sound very fucked up, but if anything does happen, you know for a fact who gets final say in what happens. You know for a fact it's going to be one of his assistants with sticky fingers. I know that sounds really fucked up to say, but let's be real here. Yeah,
I
probably.
mean, I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, I'll tell you this: like, um, supposedly for many many years, um, um, many writers were supposedly writing all these secret books, and then they die, and and we never saw anything. Like, I think the biggest example is like JD Salinger. Like, everybody's like, oh my god, like JD Salinger has supposedly been writing all of these books for all of these years, and when he dies, like, we're gonna have this huge, like, you know we're gonna have like 50 books suddenly arrive from JD Salinger, and it never happened.
I'm
Like,
surprised
it never fucking happened.
now I'm surprised you used that example instead of Prince. You know that's what he did, right? Prince had like
Yeah,
recorded
that's
hundreds of
another. I mean,
songs.
Prince is an example as well. Like, he apparently has. Prince is the one where it's like proven, like, he just has vaults and vaults of music, and it's just like, well, where are they? How come we aren't hearing them? Like,
Because his
what's up?
family and all of his next of kin are fighting for the rights to it because that is a gold
Right.
mine. Also, to what that person right at the bottom, Cheyenne, to what they said. Hope the Expanse authors get the right. I don't know if you saw my video on it. It's literally only 4 minutes. But I hope they don't for their sake. And I don't think they hope they do either, because nobody wants to be known as the guy that finishes Ice and Fire unless you're George R. R. Martin. Nobody wants to be known as that guy. That's why I feel bad for Sanderson. Poor guy has his own books in his own right. He's a self-respected author, and he doesn't want to be that guy. He hates that he had that reputation.
I don't think he's in the. I think most people like Sanderson for his own stuff, and the finishing Wheel of Time thing is now considered quite a minor thing.
I wonder if he regrets it. I would actually ask him that. That would be one of my questions for Sanderson specifically, if he regrets writing the Wheel of Time, because he does get that rap all the time, and I feel bad.
When I've heard it, because I've seen plenty of interviews with him talking about it, I think in his mind he wouldn't regret it because he has a friendship with the widow, and like his relationship with the widow was such that like he was kind of like doing it for her. She asked him to do something and they talked and things like that. So I think like as a favor to her and the estate and things like that, he probably doesn't regret it. But and I don't think he's not known as just the guy who finished Wheel of Time. He's known for much more for Stormlight Archives. So
I get that. I will say though, I do feel bad for him because again, a lot of fandoms give him shit for being the finisher. However, I'll take him having the Wheel of Time rights over You know about this? The company that has the Wheel of Time stuff, like they have the license to it. Watt Productions. Holy shit! Talk about mismanagement. Holy fuck.
Okay, so according to, and this is, I'll list the source here. According to some news articles that came out in El Diario from Spain. J.D. Salinger wrote all his life. His widow and son began preparing the work for publication after his death, announcing in 2019 that all that he wrote would be shared at some point, but it's a major undertaking and not yet ready. In 2023, his son estimated that he would finish transcribing Salinger's notes in a year or two, and reiterated that all unpublished material will be published, but it's a complicated task. It's just I couldn't imagine, like how long it would take to decipher all the shit. Because you would need a Christopher Tolkien kind of character to like come in and have access to everything and have some sort of writing background as well, and things like that. So
people love mentioning Abercrombie. That's the guy. Everybody loves bringing that guy up.
Oh, are you familiar with the "It Was Me, Barry" meme? I am not. I imagine you're referring to the Flash with very similar with the Flashpoint twist. Oh, right, because like it's Reverse Flash, right? That like that orchestrates everything in the end.
Wow, you know about this? Holy shit!
Oh no, Remember when you were making out with your first girlfriend, and I have heard this, and you came first, and she touched your leg. It was me, Barry. I jerked you off at super speed, and it seemed like you came right at the woman's touch.
I'm surprised you know about this meme.
Yeah.
You're not really a meme guy. I've noticed that about you. You're not really a big meme guy. Not really.
It's not my generation, dude. Generation X, like, fuck you guys with your fucking memes. Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't think it's funny.
Really?
Like, I don't think they're funny.
Wow.
Like, somebody years ago I was in this friend group, like my wife's friend group from grad school. Like, one of them was super into games, and he bought this one called some meme game, right? And like it was kind of like it was the gameplay. What it was called, like I know your meme or know your meme, and the gameplay was very similar to Crimes Against Humanity, but they would just like show a picture and then you'd like write your own little meme to it, and it's just, you know, show a face of a kid and it's like when you feared that you might shit your pants, but it was only a fart, you know, and it's just like some guy making a funny face, and you're like, it's lazy to me, I guess.
You're
Meme
crazy.
humor is lazy.
Really?
Yeah. If there's one thing I that gets me about humor is that like a well-crafted joke is a well-crafted joke, and I appreciate like a good joke and good timing. But when something is lazy, like when someone's like, you know, the person that just throws out "you think" as like the like it's just lazy, like just going "you think," you know, like there's no humor to that. Like it's just, you're dumb. That's how I feel about memes. They're so fucking lazy. It's somebody taking the shit humor somebody else did and then posting it in a thread and trying to take credit for the humor, because you posted the meme. Like, and it's
You're
just
out of your mind.
there's no work. You know, it's like leading to this world of like AI people that like have AI like write their reports and shit. Like meme humor is that you're taking somebody else's like minimal work that's not even that funny, and then you get to post it and be like, haha, you know, like you get to post like, oh, Homer like backing up into the hedge. Okay. Where is your humor? What did you come up with there? Versus you just posted some other person's shit and are like trying to get a laugh.
I actually really like that Homer meme. It's
right, but but you get what I'm saying, right? There's no, you're not being clever. You're just posting what somebody else did.
I feel like it's more than that, but hey, look, we all have our bad
Yes,
days.
but it just seems very fucking lazy. You know, it's the equivalent of I find it as the equivalent of the guy who was quoting like very nice, you know, from Borat, right? Like, oh, you saw Borat and there was a joke in that. And now it's been used a million times. And you can lazily just go, very nice, and like try to get a laugh. But you've put no work into it. Like, one, if it's a meme and it's on the internet, it's been used a million times. So it's stale. And so it's like lazy and stale at the same time. That's what, like, and somehow like memes have made like that socially acceptable. Hey, you want to be funny by using the lamest, stalest jokes possible? Here's a meme. Like, that's how I feel about him. I fucking hate him, actually.
Oh, holy shit. I'm going
no,
through
honestly, man, the whole
messages.
fucking culture of memes is just like, they're so fucking lazy and they're so fucking stale.
Oh, shit. I sent you a... Wait a minute. Hold on. I sent you one back in May. It's the guy deciding which button to pick, and he's like sweating. And the top picture has two buttons. One says "suck Trump dick," and the other says "suck Elon dick." And then the bottom it says "conservative," and they're like wiping the sweat. You didn't think that was funny?
No,
really?
That's funny. The person that did that the first time, that's funny. But at the same time, it's also derivative. I get it, because somebody's done that button thing a million times. Do you remember like 10 years ago, there was the fucking thing on Facebook that was forever, where it was like, what my parents think I do, what I actually do. And it just like went on, and you're like, dude, these aren't funny. These aren't fucking funny. Stop.
What my friends, yeah.
Right? Like, that's what it is. You know?
I'm just going through our messages. I'm like, oh shit, I've sent you quite a few. The entire time you're just quiet. but but thinking to yourself, this piece of shit.
No, I mean it's fine, but I just think it's like you know, I I don't know. I just don't. It doesn't tell me anything about the cleverness of like. It's not like when you send a meme to me, I think you're clever in any way. Like you're not.
Thank you.
You've just like posted a meme. Like it's very different from if you said something funny and I laughed. Then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, my friend is funny, and I laughed. And like you just post a meme. You just post a fucking meme.
Michael here getting on your case. Every joke Preston has ever made was 100% original.
But I mean, it's the equivalent. Like, it's the equivalent of being like, "Hey, I made dinner for you," and then you like hand somebody a prepackaged meal you bought at the grocery store. Like, here you go. You didn't cook this. I mean, it's like, look, I'm no comedian, and I make stale jokes and all that shit too. But like, there's a degree of like scale. Like memes are it's just the fastest, simplest way of this shit. The fact that now anyone can be funny. Now a 10-year-old can be funny if they can meme. It's the same with like AI. Like anyone can write poetry. Anyone can write a report now. Now that we've got AI, we've got AI art too. You don't need to spend years in school. Like you've got AI art. Like that's how I feel. It's just a lazy shortcut. I've offended everyone. How dare you like take the banner of a generation, the banner, like what do millennials have other than their memes?
Whatever you guys do not send Preston Ugandan knuckles. He will not enjoy that as much as I do.
Do you think Qyburn is an agent of Martell? I mean, I'm the person that first came up with this theory and put it forward.
Do you realize it's been so long since you came up with that theory that we now don't? This guy does not know where it came from, and he's actually unknowingly talking to the guy that made it.
Yeah. I think that in the end, like looking back at everything, like, could all of these things be coincidences? Like all of the things that we point out, the difference, like with Qyburn and the Martells. Sure, they could all be coincidences. I think it makes a better story if Qyburn has some sort of backstory. He's certainly, he's certainly attached to Marwyn. Qyburn certainly knows Marwyn, and Marwyn certainly knows the Martells. It's his gossip seems to be about the Dornish in A Feast for Crows, but then again, the plot is about the Dornish, so his gossip is going to be about the plot. So I think it makes a much better story. It's certainly a strange coincidence that he's around Amory Lorch and then the Mountain and then Tywin and things like that. So, do I think there's a chance that it's all just a coincidence that these connections between Qyburn and the Dornish are there? Yeah, it's completely. But at the same time, I think it makes a much better story. So, like, going forward, I think Qyburn should be a Martell agent. It's just, we're never going to find out. But I'm certainly, I'm the one that came up with the original Dornish master plan and Qyburn's part in it. So, and that's going to be part of the fanfic and everything. So.
Hey, did you hear about this theory? It's kind of old. It's called like the pink letter. Like I don't know what's going on.
Did you hear
about this really? Like, yeah.
Do you think Mance? What do you think about Mance writing the pink letter?
We got to have that conversation because, like I said, man, the fact that John knows Ramsay's handwriting and he knows like specifically what it is, that's a video for another time.
Yeah.
We got to have that conversation about like who wrote the pink letter. If you're still on the same answer.
The dead internet theory. I do think that there is some truth to this, the dead internet theory in the sense that like as AI becomes more and more prevalent, and we just everything just becomes more and more slop, we'll just have no reason to be on it. Just like anything else, it's like people will stop watching TV because there's too many ads, right? Like why would I watch TV when I have streaming? Like I don't have the ads. Like going back to regular TV, like with ads, is like atrocious, and it's getting that way with the internet. Like I find Google is almost impossible to use now because I get a bunch of AI slop, and so it's hard. And I don't see it getting any better. AI is now like basing its models on itself, so it's just everything's going to eat itself. Like in order for AI to get better, they've already fed the internet into AI. So like what more is there to feed? You need like another 20 years of human existence feeding an internet to give it more things to base its models on. But it's not going to have that. It's instead just going to have AI, like it's just eating itself. So I find less and less reason to go on the internet. So yeah, AI is gross and here to stay because of capital and serve a child. Yeah, I mean, probably, but it is funny that we're getting to this point that it's just that we can call it all slop, and we're getting to this kind of agreement. Like everybody kind of agrees. Like, doesn't everyone agree that Google is much worse than it used to be, despite the AI?
No. See, yeah, all the generations currently that use the internet right now, but the upcoming generation, do you really think they're going to care?
That's the thing is I do want,
Can I give you an example of what I'm talking about? Because I use my mom as an example. So my mom, the way she pays her credit cards is she will go on the phone with the card company and tell them like the information for her to pay. I go on the computer. Okay. I go on the computer and I'll just do it manually. There's going to be at a certain point where people will kind of just like remove all ability to like have that middleman, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean,
I need to talk. Like, for example, my mom, if she's going to order a pizza, she's going to have to do it over the phone and talk to a person. I don't mind doing it on DoorDash, but I won't go and do the kiosk thing. The next generation, they probably will prefer the kiosk because most of their interactions have always been online. They don't mind having all of this stuff automated and AI related. So as we go further into the future, you and I have problems with it, but as we die out, the generation upcoming, they're not going to have an issue with it anymore.
Eventually, though, see, here's what is inescapable right now is that people. So right now, AI. Some people really like AI or like Wikipedia. Wikipedia is actually a pretty good example of like Wikipedia though was always a little different in that there are human beings that are gatekeepers of all the different pages. So if you try to like change a page, somebody is on your ass. However, there is weirdness to Wikipedia, right? Like every time you look up a celebrity, for some reason, their percentage of their Jewish ancestry is in the fucking background of like who they fucking are. And you're like, why is every Wikipedia page like this, right? So there are these like weird biases that seep in. And so what's going to happen is that AI is going along and some kids think AI is a useful tool, but eventually you know that like the right wingers and weird conspiracy theorists are going to like manipulate the system to have AI spewing out right-wing slop as like fact. And therefore like people are going to stop using it because it's not going to be useful anymore. The minute it stops being useful and accurate, it like people won't use it,
I know you got off Twitter, but that's what Elon tried doing to Grok.
Yeah.
And then, right. But here's the thing though, then Grok, I don't know what keeps happening. Grok, I guess, corrects itself. And then whenever some right winger asks it a question, it gives it the facts, and the right winger gets upset. This happens all the time.
Yeah.
And then the right winger's like, "It's not true. Propaganda. What? Elon, what's going on with Grok, bro?"
Right. Well, thank you, Blue Duck. But yeah, no, I mean, you're right. It's they. But people used to use Wikipedia as a source, and then people learned you can't use Wikipedia as a source. People right now are using ChatGPT as a source, or like what the AI says, and eventually you're going to learn like, oh, you can't do that. The internet's getting less and less accurate. It's just getting more and more misinformation. And so, but I mean, maybe it's people's only source. So I don't know how you fight it, but I don't know. It seems like a less useful tool to me every day. Like I can't. But I might be of a dying generation where I like need to find the source, and like people quote fake statistics to me all the time, and you're just like, where'd you get that? Oh, you don't know how to fucking do critical thinking. Oh, I'm sorry. Will the next generation have any critical thinking skills? I don't know. Maybe not. But
I just thought of a great meme. I know you're gonna hate it, but I was gonna send it to you. It's a guy who's sad saying fascism is bad, and the other neckbeard going, "Source." You like that shot? Come on, bro. Come on, funny. You like that? It's funny.
AI is just a mouthy search engine. That's true. Are you going to ever have a Northerner ever win in a fight in the fan fiction? I mean, Bran's a Northerner. Arya's a Northerner. She's going to be winning a lot of fights. I'm trying to think of who else. How many Northerners are left? Harwin's probably not. Try to think who else is going to win in a fight. So somebody. I mean, it's kind of true that the Northerners are like Klingons. You just gotta. They always get their ass kicked, despite being the strongest people. You got to show that everybody else is strong by having them defeat a Klingon.
Jorah wins a lot of fights. What do you mean?
I remember when Wikipedia was considered the slop source of information. And that's the funny thing is that like the AI for the most part just reads the Wikipedia and some Reddit posts, but man. Oh, at the wall, is Melisandre going to run out of ingredients or powders she conceals up her sleeves? No, she's not, only because the battle is coming quick. But that was I did include that for a reason. Like it's like people keep like catching my little things where I'm going to do something with it. But like I needed to mention the fact that she has powders in her sleeves, because the powders in her sleeves are going to be very, very important later on. And the fact that she has powders in her sleeves needs to be like reminded again, because I am doing something with her having powders in her sleeves. And so it's like me bringing it up again, like it was purposely brought up again because the powders are going to play a role in something that I have in mind with the story. So it's yeah. Anyway, it is 12:24. I think it's time for me to head to bed. Carmine, any last things? I know you're like, what? You've only been here on 3.5 hours.
I know
your voice is already gone. Your voice isn't completely gone.
You gotta drink more water, homie. That's how I keep it alive. You gotta drink more water.
I drank some, yeah.
I don't know what Trey's schedule is gonna be for more Berserk with the boys. I saw someone, dude. Berserk and the boys is fucking. it's so annoying how much people love Berserk and the Boys, yet it's almost as if like hundreds of thousands of people watch it. Like, come on, like at least like what the fuck?
Yeah.
People constantly clamoring for this. Like, yeah, whatever. I'll check. I'll check what Trey's schedule is and see if we can do some Bezeku with the boys and some more Alien Earth.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, man. Thank you all for staying with me. Thank you, Carmine, for joining me. And yeah, hopefully we'll do the Blood Moon thing this week, and maybe if we can get Trey, do Berserk with the boys. And I'll try to do my Going Over Mel chapter this week. And a lot of things scheduled. But thank you all. Thank you all. But man, people keep catching these things that keep spoiling themselves. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good eventually. All right, man. I'll talk to you guys later.